Hello! I'm live! How is everybody? Jonathan, number one. And still number one, much later. Followed by Kim. Hello, Kim. Hello, Debbie. Hello, Neil. Hello, Paul. Who else have we got with us? Another Paul. All the Pauls. Excellent. And Deb. Hello, Deb. And Debbie. And Graham. Hello, Graham. Not tempted to buy anything this week, Graham. I need to rectify that. It's been a while. There you go. Have I got everybody? Or have I missed somebody? Hello, Santosh. Good to see you again. I think I've got everybody.
The Aussie contingent are in.
Yes.
I thought of the Aussie contingent today.
Go on.
Yes, I was asked if I would do some Power BI training for Australia. They wanted it about lunchtime their time.
Go on, what time's that here?
I said I'd be reluctant. It will be about 1 a.m. here. I said I don't mind 5 or 6 o'clock because I'm awake. I said I don't mind 10 or 11 o'clock at night because I'm awake, but not bang in the middle of the night.
No, that's not good for you,
No.
is it? No.
No.
And anyway, that'd only giddy Lola, and I'd be up. So, it wouldn't be good all round.
Santosh's wife hid his wallet.
That's actually a very wise move. She's a shrewd lady. There you go. Hello, Renee. You with us as well. Excellent. That's a good move. Oh, Graham's trying ARC at the moment, not giving up on Backblaze, but it would be an economical way of using the 1 terabyte of OneDrive space that comes with 365. It would.
Well, our credit cards were taken out of the freezer.
They were, weren't they?
Yes, because we needed the room for the Magnums.
That's true. But we didn't go crazy. We've got a few bits and pieces, but no, we didn't go crazy.
Oh, I thought you meant crazy with Magnums. You mean kit?
I meant kit.
Yeah.
And we didn't go crazy because it was iPhone ordered day, wasn't it, for the small ones?
Yeah.
We didn't do that either. Obviously, we've still got a little bit of time if we wanted to do that, but, not going anywhere. I've lost track of where we are lockdown-wise, but never mind. Right, let's make sure that you can see my desktop. Yay, you can see my desktop. Possibly. Yeah, let's get rid of that poster. There was a slight issue. Don't go there. It's been that way. Right, I'm not going to be able to see the chat for however long. So,
Neil says I should do this training straight after the show.
But then it's Saturday your time and they don't work Saturday your time. So that wouldn't work either. No. It's got to be a sense. Didn't you train them at 5 a.m?
Yeah, the other week.
Which was 4 their time, wasn't it?
It was about 3 o'clock their time, but the thing is, they've now moved their clocks forward and we're about to move ours back.
Yeah.
So what was a 9-hour gap is going to be an 11-hour gap.
One day we'll stop doing silly things like that, but having seen how the world's gone this week, it's just going from bad to worse. So, what have we got for you tonight? We have got a nice update to Vivaldi. I'm loving Vivaldi more and more with every update, so I'll get you up to speed on what's new. Having said that, there was one little dodgy part of the update. You'll be shocked, seriously. Then we're on to shelf applications, which was a request, but I've taken the original request and made it bigger. Then we're going to be creating a holiday planner, but having discussed it with myself, holiday planner, but also a memory of the holiday as well, which I actually did many years ago.
Is this a laughable holiday planner?
No, not one of ours. No, I did do this years ago before we had a laughable holiday. And it's lovely to look back on it. So I still have it in the drawer. Wasn't actually for me. Do you remember when Mum was really antagonistic to anything organised?
Yep.
Yeah. I said, how about this, Mum? Oh, she loved it. So I thought we'd do a digital one. Then we got some freebies. Then you're doing your reporting on the attendance tracker. Oh, you can't get out of the meetings because Mike will know. Then I'm organising more text in Scrivener. So we're looking at the features that Scrivener has to organise said text. I need to get a wiggle on with that as well. But in the meantime, we broadcast in HD. Make sure that you have selected HD from the cog just below the video on the right-hand side. Did you lose the cog when you lost everything else, Mike?
Yeah.
Had a bit of a snafu with his YouTube, didn't you, Mike?
Yeah, I had to clear me cache for all time, and now I'm having to log back into things. Thank goodness for 1Password.
Yeah, I hate it when I have to clear the cache.
Although there are other password managers.
Other password managers are available.
Yes.
Which might not nag you if you need to use the same password twice, which bugs me, still bugs me. While you're down there, if you find anything useful, give us a thumbs up. It really makes a difference with YouTube. But what have we been up to this week? Well, Saturday, hideously busy, as ever. We managed 8 shows. Mike got a reprieve. It was international weekend and he couldn't be less interested in England, could you?
You know, they've played about 4 times this week and I've missed every one of them.
I haven't seen any of them, but I did hear 2 scores. I think one they won and one they lost.
All I know is Harry Maguire got sent off.
Oh, right. Oh, was he the one who got 2 yellows?
I've no idea.
I did see a report on that. So you can see how interested we are, not, when it comes to international weekend. Which meant he wasn't miserable, didn't care. So we went on to Brooklands by Request, where this week it was boys' names. Didn't they surpass themselves?
They did.
We even got Andante Andante in it, which has become a tradition. It has to fit in with the theme, and we discovered it was a boy's name, which was handy. The week before we got it in because it was a girl's name. This week, it's calendars and dates, isn't it? So I don't really stand much chance. But trust me, I take it as a challenge. Then there was the obligatory Tesco delivery. This is getting to be a habit, isn't it, Mike? The lovely Wendy.
Oh, Wendy.
It was Wendy. I know it was Wendy because he's downstairs saying, "Thank you, Wendy."
I know it was Wendy because she has a little badge on, like
Really?
all the Tesco's deliveries.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, but this one was Wendy. Anyway.
It said Wendy.
Sunday, I literally said to Mike, I vaguely remember trying to plan something. I can't for the life of me remember what. So that went well.
You didn't tell me you were putting that slide in.
Oh, yes, planning. We planned,
No,
but I
the
can't
one with
remember what.
Wendy.
Oh, Wendy.
The 2 love hearts. Yes,
Yes.
remember I'm behind you here.
You are. Now, Monday, you will remember 2 weeks ago when we had the sad, sorry tale of the fence panels being replaced. Only it was like that for a week and a bit. Success! We now have fence panels. There's just the slight issue of there's no holes in the fence anymore for the dogs to sniff each other through. So we need to put some kind of little meeting thing in there for them. But the fence is back. So that was Monday taken care of. Tuesday, of course. Very, very important day. If only. Do you know, I'm going to have to come out of this for a second. Forget this. Because if I don't fix this, it's going to look utterly ludicrous. So let me fix one thing on my slide and then I can share it with you. That is much better. Let's go with that, shall we? Yes, it was 3-show Tuesday. We had a Marooned at 4 o'clock. We had our MacBites live at 5 o'clock. And then we had our not after hours. No, that's not right either. I will fix that. But we had our after show party. Not only that, I don't know whether it was bad planning, but it was Prime Day. And we were getting a running commentary on what people were buying, weren't we? Jane's got a shiny new, it's a dot, isn't it? An Echo Dot. She was not tempted with pink, Graham. No, it was a very pale grey, looked rather nice. And then, of course, we did our high-speed event and they announced the iPhone. Are we buying? Do you know, I think there was a gross oversight during that event. Have you got any idea?
I missed most of it.
It would have been the thing that I would have been tempted with as well. And they didn't mention it, not during the event. And I must admit, with the rest of it, I haven't even bothered going to have a look. But on the iPads, they put the finger recognition in the on-off switch. Does anybody know if they did the same with the iPhone? Because they didn't mention it. And that to me was a given. I thought they would absolutely do that. But if they did, they didn't mention it. And that would have really tempted me. Anyway, that takes us on to Wednesday, which was also Prime Day. And I must admit, I did buy a couple of small items, but nothing else. Because there was something far more important. It was MacBites Siri's birthday. 9 years since he arrived via the Liverpool One Apple Store. And I remember sitting in the Liverpool One Apple Store. And we were trying to record a show, weren't we?
We were
trying to do a kind of live as it happened, not exactly unboxing, but you know what I mean. And Mike's boss rang him, and it was all to do with a redundancy package that was being put together. And I basically sat there for about an hour and a half with just me and Siri talking to each other while I waited for Mike.
Renee's buying the Pro Max.
Oh, nice. That's the one I would go for if I was going for one. But I'm thinking I'll probably leave it till next year.
And Paul says no mini pencil.
No, and I did want one of those as well. It'll happen one day. When they run out of other things to sell us, that'll happen. Now they've got that magnetic backside to go with the illuminated one. It makes sense to stick a pencil to it. I live in hope if I die in despair, which is how it's looking. Which took us on to Thursday. Medic alert. Gardening. Seriously, do not ask. The cut arm, that is. There were injuries in the gardening. I don't even know how I managed to do that.
I've got injuries too, but I didn't photograph them and put them on slides.
I thought it was worth it. It's my abiding memory of that day.
I'll put mine on slides next week.
OK, we'll do yours next week. Which brings us round to tonight, when it's Two Show Friday. We've already done one. And here with the second one. Excellent. So we're starting with a Vivaldi update. Actually, that's 3.4. Can you tell I'm not well? I really am. I could really do with a break. Might have to wind down at the weekend. Would that chance was there, that'd be good. Right, they've started off and given you the ability. So Vivaldi is incredibly customisable to start with. But I do appreciate an application, and another one that comes to mind that lets you do it is Pathfinder. They are letting you completely change the menus. So the contextual menus, the other menus, every menu, you can change them, which is really useful. I remember adding one to Pathfinder, which was, I think he was putting things in the trash or bypassing the trash, one or the other. And it was incredibly useful. One of the things that drives me mad in Vivaldi is when you right click and say open in another tab, it does, but it takes you to that tab. And I want it in the background tab, and I always forget to choose in a background tab because every other system, every other browser, it automatically opens it in a background tab. So one thing I could do with that is actually take away the option to open it in a new tab and only leave open it in a background tab. So that's the kind of thing that would actually enable you to do. So I thought that was rather an improvement. I like it already, but it was an improvement. So these are your contextual menus, and you can also add custom links to them. So if you wanted to right click and open up your email or something, you can do that as well, which again, just making it far easier. Also, although I've given up doing this because it would work with the pandas, wouldn't it? But if I leave it on the news, I'll drive myself crackers. But you can set a website to periodically refresh. So it reloads itself, and the options that you've got there are 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. So if you wanted the news updating every 5 minutes, although, might have to have you committed if you did that, it's there. Which, again, I think is a really nice thing, particularly if it's something that you're waiting for. Obviously, if it's to order an iPhone, you're going to have to do that yourself, aren't you? Because it's just refresh. But something that's every however long, that would work quite nicely. They have also released Vivaldi on Android. Can't wait for it on iOS. But there is a Vivaldi now available for Android, and they're totally free, so just download and try it. One of the good things is how everything synchronises with your Vivaldi account. You will be able to pass tabs from the desktop to mobile and back and forth, which I already do with Firefox. Until 2 weeks ago, when me and Firefox had a falling out. And it's because it's just not...
You have a lover's tiff.
We did. It's not stable on Catalina. It just keeps crashing. But I did love to have something open on my mobile, probably lying in bed in the morning thinking I don't really want to get out of bed. So I convinced myself I'm doing some work. But then I need to have that tab open on the desktop. So I just send to desktop through the Firefox account, and that's what I'm hoping for from Vivaldi. Just need an Android device now to try it on. Now, the last thing I take no responsibility for this whatsoever. I have no idea what they were thinking. They've added a game, Vivaldi. I don't know why either. 80s style arcade game. Yes, don't the graphics look like it? Seriously, it's bad. Why? Is it silly season? Did I miss something? He seems to be riding a rocket. It's not for me. No.
That reminds me of something I saw today on Facebook. You can get mugs with pages from historic football matches from teletext.
Oh, good grief. Yeah, the graphics do look teletext, don't they? You can download this thing and then you are riding a cybernetic ninja one-wheeler called Cyberpunk. The Cycle Punk. There you go. Yeah, no. Just no. It actually looks like those things that they use to celebrate the Queen's birthday. You know, when they do the salute in the park?
Yeah.
Looks like one of those. Yeah, I'm not sure. Why would they do this? Why would they do that? No, I'm not intrigued in the slightest. But although having said
like
that...
an Easter egg, isn't it?
If we look at the dog... You've tempted me with the dog. But apart from the dog, if that is a dog indeed, no, I'm not going that way. It's not happening. Let me know. Would you download that?
Neil said it looks like Apple Arcade.
Well, that's all you've got to say to me. Don't get me going on Apple Arcade. I lose the will to live even faster then. Anyway, let's get on to something else. Let's get beyond the game. So the browser itself is fabulous. But a game? No, you're never going to tempt me with a game. But we're moving on to shelf applications. Now, this was in response to Neil, wasn't it? Who wanted to know how Yoink worked and what you could do with it. Well, Yoink itself is one of a genre of applications known as the shelf applications. Shelves. They provide a transitory storage area that you can put files in and take files out of. Now, they weren't always around. Do Windows have any shelf apps? Are there shelf apps for Windows? Let me know, Mike. Don't use Windows, so I wouldn't know. But the shelf apps came around in 2011. Who can remember why they came around in 2011? Oh, yes. It was an update to the operating system. At the time, that was OS X. Obviously, that is now Mac OS. But it was Lion. Do you remember the Legalsa wallpaper?
I do.
There it is. Hideous. Hideous. Lion. It was Lion. On Lion. Now, full screen mode arrived in 2011. Back in 2011, to use it, there used to be a double-headed arrow in the top right-hand corner, and that would take your app full screen. I loathed it with a passion. Let me know in the chat. Did you love it? Did you loathe it? Did you not care? It did change as we moved on, which I must admit, because I don't use it. But Lion itself also spawned Lion Disk Maker. I even had a screenshot of Lion Disk Maker on Lion. Oh, doesn't it look dated now? But Lion was a huge, huge change in terms of pretty much everything. But it changed again, the full screen aspect of this, in Yosemite. When Apple launched Yosemite, the traffic lights in the top left then changed to red to close a window, yellow to minimise it, and the green became a full screen. You can avoid going into full screen with the green button by holding down the Option key. But let's assume you want to work in full screen mode. As soon as you do that, you lose the ability to drag and drop stuff onto your desktop. So if you're taking things out of a web browser and you want to put them on the desktop and then do something with them, you lose the ability to do that. If you want to take something from one app to another, you lose the ability to do that. And that is where the shelf apps came in. And the first one of those was Yoink. And Yoink came out for, as I say, Mac OS, or OS X, back in 2011. And they're still going now, which is quite surprising, but they are. Another one followed, which was called, and still is, Dropshelf. That's by Pilot Moon, the people behind PopClip. They do exactly the same job, just in a slightly different way. And following that, there was a third option, which is called Gladys. So we now have Alfred and we have Gladys. So let's have a look at them. Do we have a question there? You were about to speak, Mike.
No, I was going to say Deborah never uses full screen because it becomes a different desktop.
It does.
Kim's not a fan of full screen.
Not just me then.
I'm not a fan of full screen. It's weird. I am on an iPad, but not on a desktop. And Neil says that's when he started his love affair with Moom. I
too use Moom. However, we've just discovered an issue with that, haven't we? That we didn't know was there. But we'll deal with that. I took the approach Neil did.
Seems like Gladys should be Hazel's sister.
Yeah, thinking that's so cool. Right, let's have a look at this. Let's get a Finder window up and show you the issue. Okay.
Gladys is the name of your Premier. Ours is Boris.
Right. So these are the buttons that we're talking about. And when you hover over them, you get the ability to, with the red one, close it. With the amber one, minimise it. And this one will take you full screen. But look what happens with mine. I get this popover. That popover comes from Moom. Now, Moom is the same as Magnet and a lot of others that we have actually talked about. Well, what's Santosh saying? I just get it to close to a full screen. Would love to be able to get it to other applications. Hate it when the Mac freezes and it's in full screen. Oh, I've never had that because I never use it. What I want to happen when I click on that green button is that it takes it to what I call full screen. Now, I can't really call that full screen, can I, if I'm talking about the other full screen? That's my full screen. That is basically filling the space that would otherwise be the desktop. That to me is full screen. That's what I want to happen. Now, I have it configured. So there's the mouse. I am not moving the mouse. I have it configured so if I use Control and F, it takes whatever has the focus to my full screen. I also have it configured that if I use Control, Shift and R, it restores it to the size it was before. I love that. When I go on a Mac and it doesn't have Moom on it, where I've programmed that to happen, I'm like, what? It's broken. And then I realise it doesn't have Moom on it. So that's where I use Moom. Moom's interface is this that you see here, but you have complete control over what Moom actually looks like. And this is all to do with being full screen before we even get to talking about Yoink. You need to be able to control how you're getting it in and out of full screen and what kind of full screen you're working with to see why Yoink became a necessity. So I have the options here to go my full screen, to go half left, I have half right, and I also have top and bottom. But top and bottom, I also have on shortcut keys. So I have shortcut keys for all of those, and they are in my head. I don't even have to think. I would have to think more to actually articulate to you what they actually are than I do actually using them. Now, I use 4 shortcut keys. So Control, Option, Command, Shift, and back you come. Up to give me the top half of the screen, and down, the down arrow to give me the bottom half. I do not use the arrow keys to go to the left and right, because if I use that, it goes to a different screen. So for that, I use Control, Option, Command, Shift, L for left, R for right. And I've just got used to that. So those are the ones that I use. And of course, you still have the ability to go back to the original size with the restore. So once full screen came in, I hated it. Absolutely loathed it. So I have never used it. So if I go to this button on a machine that doesn't have Moom installed, if you hold the Option key down, now obviously Moom's doing something different, so I am holding the Option key down, and you click on that, that should take you full screen. It isn't doing. Come on. No, that's full screen, real full screen. Now I've lost everything, so I don't want that one. Come on, out we come. Exit full screen. Could be because I've got Moom running. Unless it's that one. No, it's not that one either, so I've no idea what's going on there. But I think if you don't have Moom, give somebody try it and let me know. Now Graham's got something different going on here. Full screen for iTunes and Mail. We use a trackpad instead of a mouse, which makes the 3-finger swiping between the screens easy. Good point. I only use a trackpad for editing audio or video. Deb is a full screen lady, but she's on a PC. On a PC, it does make more sense somehow.
It's funny that because I'm weird. Well, yeah, let me I'll clarify that. No, if I'm in Excel, I'll go full screen, or if I'm in Word, I'll go full screen. If I'm in PowerPoint, I'll go full screen. But I don't like going full screen in Windows Explorer. But then I don't like going full screen in Finder either. It's weird.
The one I use the most is this view, which my shortcut for is Control, Shift and Q, which is, it gives me, that looks a bit weird, doesn't it? It gives me a half-size window, but in the middle of the screen, and I use that one a lot. You see, it's working for Neil. This is because you haven't got the other thing installed. That one is such a time saver. There's also the option where you can double-click at the top. So all I'm doing is double-clicking in that undefined space, shall we say. So you can do it on the left, you can do it on the right, and that will toggle you between what you had and what you've got now. So there are some useful shortcut keys there that will help out. Obviously, I've got Moom running, which I adore. I adore Moom. I really do adore Moom. Now, didn't you have a problem? Yeah, the problem that we had with that when I was looking at it was I thought, now we're on Catalina, surely there's a way to go split screen. But because I've got it where I hover over here and I've got the Moom controls, that's overriding the Mac OS controls. So it might be an idea to turn off the Moom controls because I don't actually need them when I hover over that. So if you've never seen Moom, before we look at the rest, Moom is this. I don't use much of it, to be honest. As you can see, it runs faceless, so I don't actually see it. On the mouse, I just have it where the pop-up controls appear when hovering. I don't have anything on the keyboard shortcuts, but in the custom ones, this is where the magic happens. So Control and F takes me full screen, and 4 shortcuts and L goes to the left, 4 and R to the right. Control, Shift and Q puts it in the middle. Restore to original size is 2 and R. And I also have a couple of others, which is to centre a dialogue. This one at the bottom, move to the other display. There's 2 of those. One is if I want to use the shortcuts and send it round the monitors to the right, and then the other one to the left. And I have them when they get to the end of the monitors, bearing in mind I have 3. So let's try it with, let's take this one here. If I use my shortcut key and I go 1, it's on the left screen, 1 more on the right, 1 more, and it's back in the middle. So that's controlled by these 2 here. The reason that I have those is so I can move things from any screen to any other screen without you seeing it on my shared screen. So I have, for instance, Wirecast on the right and I have my microphone on the left. If I needed to swap them over, what I don't want to have to do is bring them across like this to get to the other screen. I can actually I'll leave that on the left-hand side, but I've now taken it across to the right-hand side through a shortcut key and you guys had no idea. So that's why I memorise these, because I use this all the time. But having it on the mouse here, where the pop-up controls are on the zoom button, so let's get rid of that. Having taken that away, I now hover over this button, I get the proper Mac OS controls, which is I can enter full screen, I can tile to the left, tile to the right. This is my secondary monitor, this is my tertiary monitor, and these that it's found down here are my iPads. So be aware if you are using Moom and you are trying to see that, you're not going to see it if you have the tick in the box in the mouse area where it brings it up. Now, I don't use any of that. I don't use that on the Mac. I am not sending screens to iPads and all kinds of stuff like that. I have other applications that are running doing that. But just so you have the full story before we start actually doing anything else. So I decided that full screen to me meant that and nothing else. So I personally do not use full screen. But if you imagine going into full screen mode, so we'll actually do it. I have no idea what the shortcut key is, but technically speaking, I should just be able to click there. Right, from this view that you have now, you have no way to drag and drop onto your desktop. Unless, like me, you have multiple monitors. But let's assume that you don't, that you're working on a laptop or you're working on a single screen and you have nowhere to drag and drop anything, but you want to be able to drag and drop things from multiple places. So I do believe in here I have this, which is, have we got some picky somewhere? I think we're doing here. Here we go. Here's all the icons. So if I wanted to drag these icons somewhere with a view to dragging them somewhere else, collate them, the desktop's the usual place. Now, obviously, with this being the Finder, one option is to drag and drop onto the desktop, and then you're good to go. Except if you want to work in, say, Pages or Keynote to put the images on a slide, on a page, and they're still hidden on the desktop. So that's when the first one of these shelf apps appeared, which was Yoink, which I should have down here, which I might not have started, but let's make sure. Okay, so we'll get the Yoink icon, and when I drag, I'm now dropping it onto the Yoink shelf. Now, the Yoink shelf position, by default, is on the left-hand side of the screen in the middle. So kind of that area there. The reason that I choose not to have mine there is if I just give you a quick overview of what I'm actually sat looking at. Right, I'm sat looking at that, where I've got my left screen, my iMac and my right screen. And I wouldn't really want this Yoink shelf appearing there, which is bang in the middle of all my monitors. So I decided to have it appearing down the bottom here. So it's as simple as that. We've gone over to Scrivener, have we? Right. To use it, you just start dragging and dropping items to the shelf and it puts them on the shelf. And then when you switch from the app that you are working with, which in this case is Finder, but let's go into Pages and take that full screen. This will be interesting. Let's open in front and the excitement. Neither. Other screen. It's going to be great fun, isn't it? Very interesting. No, unless I actually come out. I reckon this works great if you've got one screen. If you have more than one screen, this is awful. Because you're going to have to come out of full screen on that app to bring this on screen, to go into it, and then go full screen on this app. So I think because it automatically opened on another screen, I think if you have only got one screen, it would probably work much better. But we'll do the deed. We'll go into the view in here, and in fact, we'll just do it from up there and go into full screen mode there. Right. Idea being that this is still visible here, and you can drag and drop elements out of it. Dragging and dropping off the shelf removes them. But if it's something that you're going to repeatedly want, so let's say this Yoink icon, you're going to need it in your instructions that you're creating 4 or 5 times. You have the option to lock it, which will mean you can drag it off there and it will still remain on there, so you can drop it somewhere else in another however long. It just keeps it there. You also have the option on here to click the eyeball and get a preview of it. And when you've finished, so let's say we'll drag the lion off there, then you can clean up, but it doesn't clean up the locked one. So if you want to actually clean up totally, you click the broom and everything disappears. So it's a little area, temporary storage area, that allows you to work full screen, but it has extra features in terms of, rather than just dragging and dropping things to it and then dragging and dropping things off it, the ability to lock something there gives you more flexibility when it comes to repurposing the same item, rather than having to repeatedly drag it out from somewhere and then back in off the shelf and doing it that way. So that's what Yoink does. I do use it quite a lot. But I use it more in a different way than this because I don't use full screen. So all of these shelf apps were born out of a need that appeared because of the full screen view. So that's why I'm doing it as a this is what happens in full screen before I show you when I find it incredibly useful. When I never, ever use full screen.
Debbie says thanks for the lock idea.
It's a good one, that, isn't it? That is a good one. I do like that. Now, while we are in this mode, let's try and get the Finder window back, crying out loud. Right, the Finder window is now on the other screen. I can't bring it onto this one because if I do, it goes behind that app. But I'll show you that by having the Finder off the screen, and yes, it would still work with Yoink. So I'm trying to grab that. It would still work with Yoink in terms of I can drag and drop it on there. You also need to know, which you wouldn't know because doubtless you've probably not got 3 monitors, irrespective of which right-hand corner of which monitor I drag it to, a Yoink shelf appears. So there is one Yoink shelf per monitor. And it's, in my case, in the lower right-hand side. But that's literally just so it's out of my way, or the most out of my way I can actually make it. Right, but the other app that followed this is called Dropshelf. And Dropshelf appears, it creates a little shelf at the bottom. And the difference with Dropshelf is, whereas when Yoink has something on it, it sits there in your face. Dropshelf, as you can see, shrinks down to a tiny little shelf that you would then hover over, and then it disappears when you hover away. Now, the drop shelf thing can have multiple things on it. So if I drag another one onto the top of it, you can see it's creating a little stack. I think I got to a limit of either 5 or 6, but you can drag and drop things onto it. The beauty of Dropshelf, as far as I was concerned, over Yoink at this stage was nothing to stop me having another shelf somewhere else. Even if, I think I made it so you could only put them on the bottom. So normally, we'll look at the configuration in a second, but normally you can have these appearing wherever you want, up the sides, along the top, down the bottom, up the right hand side, completely up to you. And I think you can you move them as well? They have to be down there or not? No, I don't think you can. But you can drag the thing off it and put it somewhere else and have the shelf in a different place. Let's have a look. What's going on here?
Kim's jealous of
a 49-inch ultra wide. It's bigger than Kim's TV. Well, obviously it's bigger than our TV. We don't have one. Amazing for multitasking. Moom allows me to work with it. Without something like Moom, it would be very difficult to do what I do as well. I mean, I probably have, what's yours, 49, mine's 27 times 3. So a little bit, even more, but on separate monitors. And it does make it easy to work with. Now, at the moment, I'm still working in full screen. So I'm still at the point of dragging and dropping things off here. So this one is Dropshelf, and it lets me do exactly what Yoink does. Difference is it's separate shelves. So if it's important to you that you put things in separate places, then they are separate shelves. But other than that, works in exactly the same way. So let's take that one off there now. So they've all disappeared. We've got this hideous, hideous document. Right, let's take a look at the preferences with these. So I'm going to come out of full screen mode. If I don't, I'll drive myself mad. Right, as I say, they can be equally useful if you are in full screen mode. So if I wanted that lion thing back again, you don't have to be in full screen mode to use it. I find it just as useful when I'm not. Because if you look at what I've got here, even if I took this across to the right, which I can do with Moom, so I'm mooming right now, it's still useful because I still can't see my desktop. So to have those special areas is a good idea. Now, why do I use both? Well, up here, this is what my menu bar looks like without bartender. Right, this is Yoink. And this is what allows you to say whether you want it on the left or the right edge, and you want it the top, the middle or the bottom. So that's where that bit comes from. Then you can choose the size of it. which the default is 3 items. You can put more than 3 items on it, but you can only see 3 icons. Or you can make it as big as or as small as possible. And then you can adjust automatically for items. Right, you can bring back the last removed file. So it keeps that in case you've moved it and lost it. And that can happen. If you drag and drop onto an application and it doesn't respond, you can actually lose a file. So Yoink enables you to bring that back. You can also send your clipboard contents to Yoink and then repurpose it from there. That is useful because Yoink itself is programmable with AppleScript. Now, one of the issues with Yoink is, if you look at what you've got there, there are preferences as well. So you can launch it at login, and you can show it in the menu bar, which I do have. I have mine set to dark. One of the great things in here is you can have it ignore certain applications. So if there's certain applications you would never be dragging and dropping things into, then you can have it ignore those applications. Now, that might seem like, well, when would you do that? Why would you need to do that? I find when I'm working in Keynote, it drives me mad if I'm trying to drag slides down. So let's see what happens when I do that, and you'll see my annoyance. I'll have to come out of my presentation so I can actually show you that, but we'll do that. Right, so here I am. Let's make that up there. There we go. So this is where I'm up to. Let's say I decide I want to drag this Gladys slide to the other side of this black slide. As I get it down here, can you see what's happening? My drop shelf starts popping up. And if I were to go over here, nothing. Now, where did you come from? I think you came from there. Right. That's because in here, in the Yoink preferences, where you can choose your ignored applications, I find it incredibly annoying in 1Password, Affinity Photo, Affinity Publisher Beta, but now it's the proper one. I never drag and drop into Hindenburg, so I don't want it there. And also in Keynote and Scrivener. So these are the things that I don't want Yoink to take any notice of whatsoever. So from that perspective, Yoink gives you a little bit of control there. I also have a toggle, which is 3 and Y, that brings up Yoink. So I can use a shortcut key to bring it up. Right, so that's the Yoink preferences. Now, the other one, no, we don't want a password. Go away. Dropshelf is this icon here. One of the brilliant things that Dropshelf has is just a toggle to toggle it on and off. I don't have to quit it before I start doing a session. I can just disable it, and now it's totally disabled. With Yoink, I actually have to close it. So tonight was very different because I was demonstrating both of these. This is one of the very few occasions I don't just quit Yoink, because otherwise I'm dragging things about and people say to me, what's that that's just come up? And then I have to stop and explain what Yoink is, so I actually close it. But with Dropshelf, you can enable or disable it automatically. You also have the preferences in here as to where you have it, so which are the active edges. And as you can see, I have 2 active edges. So one is along the bottom, as you've seen. The one on the right, I can't show you because it's on a different monitor. So when you're talking about Dropshelf, unlike Yoink, which treats each screen as a separate space and puts a Yoink shelf on it, as far as Dropshelf is concerned, the entire 3 monitors are the areas it's talking about. So the reason that I have it inactive on the left-hand edge is that's where my dock is. And if I were to try dragging anything over to my dock to drop it on an application, the Dropshelf shelf would come up. So I toggle the left-hand one off, but the right-hand one is actually working if I wanted to drag and drop anything to it. You also have the ability here to minimise the inactive shelf. So if you don't want to do that, you can take the tick out. And you can close the shelves after you've dragged the content out if you want to, which pretty much most of the time I do. So there are slight differences in how they actually behave, and you may prefer one over another. One thing that might swing it is whether it has an iOS app or not. Now, the thing with the iOS app for of the three that we're going to look at, there's only Dropshelf that doesn't have one. So there is Gladys for iOS and there is Yoink for iOS. As far as I know, the last time I checked, there is no synchronization between Yoink for iPad and desktop. They're working on it. But Gladys does have synchronization between macOS and iOS. So what does Gladys look like? Well, let's get rid of everything in there for a start. Starting to look silly. Right, Gladys. Gladys is the last one to market and looks quite odd in that, you know, she's just sat there. But you can drag and drop things to Gladys. So there's Gladys's icon and there's the lion thing. And what should we have? MacBites Siri. Let's drag MacBites Siri. So you can resize this and you can position it wherever you want. So we could take it down, we could narrow it, and that will sit there wherever you then put it. And you can use that to drag and drop the content out of it. And as you can see, it retains it. So you can do it multiple times. And there's nothing to stop you using all three of these if you want. Certain things might be better in Gladys that maybe are logos that you're working with, but across multiple applications. So if you think of how any of the Affinity apps work with the assets, that there's an assets panel and you can just drag and drop them out, that's what Gladys would give you, but across applications. So if I'm putting together some notes in Pages and a presentation in Keynote, I could just leave Gladys open and drag and drop the things in and out of there. So this one does feel a little bit odd to me. The others try and disappear into the background, but Gladys sits there front and central with a proper interface. So we have all of the menus up here that are there for Gladys as well, whereas the others just pop up as a shelf. So very different ways of working, but they all tend to do a similar job. Now, I'm going to get rid of Gladys and I'm going to show you the reason that I use it, which is not the reason that we've seen so far, which is I've got some files and I want to put them somewhere and then put them into Pages, Numbers or Keynote. There are two other reasons that you may find one of these or more of these apps useful. Right, you know that my default browser is Firefox, which I do believe I have open, although it'll probably crash and burn. Right, here we go. So I've got Firefox. I will go to my blog and I will find an image somewhere that we would like to drag and drop in. So I think we can go and get the image off that. So let's say I want to write a piece up about this Devon Think 3 series. And I can drag and drop the image, so it picks it up and over there, and it lets me drop it. Why are you doing it today when you have never, ever, ever done it before? Let me try that straight into Keynote, because that's where I've been having the problem, which is I want to drag that into there. And there's the problem. All right, Keynote doesn't do it. Keynote gives me the path of that file, not the file. And it drives me insane because it didn't always used to do that. Traditionally, what it did was just what it did there. Drag, drop, image in there. The reason that they changed that was because Google didn't like the fact people could Google search for an image and then drag and drop it into whatever. So they made it that instead of that, it drags and drops the path, which who on earth is going to want that? So much so, I actually had a lady come up to me at church and she said, I've broken my MacBook. And I said, what's wrong with it? And I was expecting, you know, the cat sat on the screen or something like that. No. She said, when I drag and drop out of a browser, I just get a load of hieroglyphic text. And I said, oh, that's a new feature. She wasn't impressed. So Apple are making it easier for muggles, but this muggle did not like it. Not like it at all. But here's the fix. Using one of the shelf apps. Drag and drop it, put it on the shelf, drag and drop it in. Because that's so simple, it's like, well, it solves a problem, doesn't it? But because it's so simple, that drives me mad as well. Why force me to do that? It's ridiculous. Now, I think we tested Safari. And from memory, Safari did not do that. Safari just let you put it in and drag and drop. Come on, we're going there. Let's get that one to the left. Let's go and get an image. Shall we have that one? Drag and drop. And it actually inserts it. Size isn't right, but we won't worry about that. Possibly if I go through to the actual thing and take the same one, I will get the same size. So, moral of the story is, if you are dragging and dropping from a browser and you do not want to have to use the intermediate shelf to get it in there, then Safari is your best bet, because it's erratic on every other browser. But Apple have made it that their own browser works fine. Right, that's the first thing to think about with it, because that does drive me mad. I need to do that a lot. The other time it happens is when I am in DevonThink. So if I'm in DevonThink and I've got some, let's say, so I'm going to bring DevonThink over when I've got some stuff. So after hours, big posters. No, that won't actually help us with it, will it? Let's go and get these. Right, these are the posters for the next up and coming however many weeks. And you'll see that I've filtered them and they are PNGs. Right, a PNG will let you drag and drop. So if I just pick up one of these and drop that into there, it's a PNG and it will just drop it in, and that's fine. But many, many times when I'm working with after hours posters in particular, which are stored down here somewhere, after hours posters, there you go, hundreds and thousands of them. Right, some of these that are 1280 by 720, I have more than one of them. So there's one. That one is a PNG. And then there should be two more. Trying to find the size. Can we do a filter from here? We just do 1280. Oh, now we're seeing all kinds of things that aren't 1280. What for? Right, there we go. That's a PDF one. So I drag and drop that in. And again, what I actually get is just the text of the title. Now, that's because it's a PDF. Again, it's just what Apple have built in. You can drag and drop JPEG and PNG from DevonThink to anywhere else, but not PDF. So if I wanted that PDF file, I would have to put it on a shelf and then drag and drop it in from there. It's infuriating, but that is what I do with them. So even though I don't work full screen, there are still two reasons to use one or more of the shelf apps. One, when you're dragging and dropping from a browser into Keynote and it doesn't like it. And the other, when you're dragging and dropping in a file that Apple doesn't want you to drag and drop in. Firefox hates me lately, says Kim. Tell me about it. It's driving me mad as well. Right, so that's the shelf apps, where they came from, why we have them, etc. Next time, I'm going to take a look at the iOS versions of the shelf apps and show you what you can do with them on there. Similar in some ways and very different in others, but very useful on an iPad. So that is what we will have a look at next time. Right, let me get rid of that. We don't need that, so delete that. And now I need to find, where's my presentation gone? Because you were actually running and now you're not. Okay. So we looked at Yoink. Yoink was the first one. They are the people who also make, not Snappy App, the other one, ScreenFloat, if you've ever used that. I've got weird doings going on there. They have 3 applications, and to buy the third one would be about $6.99, which I do. But there's a complete your bundle option that's going to cost me about £18, so I have no idea what's going on there. But that is, I do believe, can you just check the price, Mike? I think it's either $4.99 or $5.99.
Which is it?
Yoink. And then there's Yoink for iPad and iPhone. Now, the Yoink thing really needs to synchronise to be of much use. The other one is Pilot Moon's Dropshelf. So this is the one from the people behind PopClip.
Yoink for Mac is $7.99.
$7.99, there we go. Dropshelf is $4.99. I don't think I have ever had to pay for an update for either of them. Now, Gladys is slightly different. Gladys is a couple of years old now, but the way it works, it's free. So I downloaded it today and it was completely free. If you want unlimited items on the clipboard, or the storage area, as it were, then it's 99 pence on the desktop and it's 99 pence on the phone. There is also, and iPad, there's also an opportunity to give them a tip, and I think the tips go up to 19.99, but they're not compulsory. So if you want unlimited items, it's 99 pence. So definitely worth a look. Although they ostensibly do the same things, doubtless they'll do them slightly differently, and that will work for you in one way, but might not work for you very well in another way. Right, so next thing we're going to have a look at.
Barbara says, do you ever use the file drop in folder X?
No, I don't. But what I can show you is there is something else that I do use. And I've used this for years and never really thought of it as being sort of the same. But there is an app called Pathfinder. And Pathfinder's like a Finder replacement. It's Finder on steroids. And it has, so if we can get to the same place, let's go into the local documents and this show and shelf apps, and here are the files that we looked at. Right, this gives me a dual view, it gives me multiple tabs, and it gives me information at the bottom, so that's why I would use this. And it has something up here called the drop stack, and that's been there since 2006 at least. And what you can do with the drop stack is drag and drop multiple files onto it. Doesn't even have to be from the same place, so you could switch folders. I don't particularly want to do this because these are audio files and they're huge. Look at the size of them. But they could be from different places, and you just collect them up there, and then when you're ready you drag them from there and then drop them wherever you want to be. So there are lots of different ways. I mean, that is very similar to what the other apps are doing. Difference with this one is it's embedded within Pathfinder rather than something that's system wide, but there's lots of different options. But no, I don't particularly use that one, but I do use Pathfinder, that's what we're talking about. Right, let's go back in there. So we are going to create a holiday planner. Who's planning the holidays already? Who's that organised?
The laughable holidays.
Yeah, we're having a laughable holiday again. The last one wasn't laughable.
No,
it was scary that it wasn't laughable. Anyway, we've touched on some areas of this, but I'm going to look at it a totally different way. So this one makes sense to me to make a kind of book that will work on the iPad. What we've touched on before was not a holiday planner. It was some days that we'd put together. So they were daily spreads. So I'm going to show you these. So I have a holiday planner that I'm going to be working to, but I also have some daily spreads that were created 2 years ago. It was coming up to Christmas. January 2018 it was, so it's coming up to Christmas in 2017. Are you thinking of opening this anytime soon?
Johnny's still awake.
Good grief.
He's praising setup. Deborah mentioned Pathfinders on setup.
Right, there we go. I think it's going to open eventually. Loading, thinking about it. Oh, fair enough then. There was quite a few of them. Right, this was my first attempt at making anything that was going to work with my iPad and an app called GoodReader. No, GoodNotes. Always get confused. GoodNotes. So GoodNotes works really well with a pencil. You can make notes with it, and you can use the individual pages that it comes with. So you can say, I want the page to be a certain colour, and I want it to have lines on it, or I want a grid. Only I didn't want that. What I wanted was to have my own custom pages that looked like that. So that was what I wanted, and then I wanted to transfer that from here over to the iPad and actually fill it in with the Apple Pencil. But to make this work, because Affinity Designer didn't have any mail merge capabilities, I had to cheat, if you remember. And the numbers that we got across the top in here, these numbers, were put there as page numbers. We cheated. Now, the reason that I've opened this up is the other thing that was incredibly difficult with this was what page size do you need it if you want it to work reasonably well on an iPad? Do you remember working it out, Mike? We needed a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
It was that bad. It was all to do with the dots per inch and blah, blah, blah. It was a nightmare. It was horrible. As you can see, each one of these is also split up into a tiny grid. So on with the pink lines. And that was so it matched, if you've seen bullet journals where everything's dots, it matched the size of a bullet journal dot. That was the rationale behind it. So this was my starting point to check one particular thing, because I'd already done all of that work once and I did not want to have to redo it all. And what I was looking for was, what size is one of these pages? So what we've got in this file is a daily spread for me and a daily spread for Mike. The only difference between the two was that I have a morning, afternoon and evening routine and Mike doesn't. So I thought it's silly to have to write that in every day. Just put it in and then it's there. And then the other one was the notes page. Now, you might be looking at this and thinking, why on earth did you do this in Affinity Designer? And the simple answer to that was Affinity Publisher hadn't been released. So life would have been much easier if it had. That's why I ended up with something that looked like that, which is 93 artboards. That's why the file is slow to open and work. But the key point that I was looking for was, what size is the artboard? That was the key. As long as I'd got that right, I was quite happy. So, easiest way to work that out is to grab one of these and check the number that you have in the height and width for the entire artboard. And we can see it actually says artboard. And the size that it has given us, I will make a note of, although I might actually just open this and be done with it, is 768 by 980. Now, I tried all sorts because I thought, well, what if I went for A4? And that meant the writing was too small. Or what if I went for A5? That left a gap on the top and bottom. So this size was the size they recommended, but they didn't recommend it in pixels. They recommended it in some kind of weird calculation that you were supposed to do. And after having gone through it all with Mr. Excel over there, this was what we came down to. It was that. Now, I haven't touched this file since then because it didn't really work for us, did it? I used it for 2 months. And I don't really know what the problem was. I think what put me off was having to create the next month's worth of pages, which all had to be done manually because, as you can see, they're all on separate artboards. Would that be easier now with Publisher? It probably would. It probably would. But that's what I was working from back then. If you only have Designer, then you can follow along with this by putting in separate artboards for all of your artwork. But if not, if you've got Affinity Publisher, that's the way to go. So that was the original file that I was working with. I'm going to open that same file, but this time I'm going to open it with Affinity Publisher. Right, this will serve two purposes. One, hopefully we'll get something that's much better than all of these separate artboards. And two, you will be able to see the kind of questions it asks you when you try and open a Designer file in Publisher, should it ever think about opening. I think I'll get rid of Dev and think that'll help for a start. But hopefully it will open. Ah, hello. Decided to join us, have you? Excellent. Loading one document. Now, it should stop and ask me because the document I'm opening is not a Publisher file. So it's saying, do you want to convert these artboards to spreads? Now, there's no harm in actually doing that, given that Affinity Publisher is where you would be working if you were working with multiple pages. Affinity Designer is horrible for doing that. If in Affinity Designer, if I wanted to do, like, just change the position of a page number, you'd have a big job. But in here, because you've got your master pages, a lot easier to do it. So I'm going to say yes, convert it to spreads. So instead of it coming in with a million artboards spread all over the place, they should be listed down here as individual pages. Now, what on earth order they will come in, your guess is as good as mine. Let's have a look. Looks like I've got lots of them with the same, by the look of it, with the same date on. Let's keep going. Let's see what it's got. There should be 93. If there's not 93, I've got a problem. Here we go. That one's okay, isn't it? Yep, they are all there. So mine are in. So the last one should be Mike's at the bottom, and again, there are 93 of them. They've come in the wrong way round. So we've got the one at the bottom. I might have wanted the one at the top. But all I'm really interested in at this point is the actual paper. I'm not actually interested in the contents of this. So it doesn't matter at all. As long as I have that, which it should be able to give me in here, the spread setup. So what size is it? And you can see it's brought in the dimensions, which were 768 by 980, which is great. So it's brought in the size that I need. You'll also notice that there are no master pages. Because there were no master pages, there was no capability of having master pages inside Affinity Designer. So actually, if I was working with this in a proper way, I would split this file up now and probably get rid of 90% of the... I would be left with 3 pages, and they would become master pages. But I'm not looking to do a bullet journal with this. If you are interested in me doing a bullet journal, let me know and we will add it to a future thing. But at the moment, all I am interested in is that I have a page size that I know will work brilliantly on the iPad. But if you would like me to do that, let me know. Okay, so first thing I need to do here then is to create a master page. So I have a master page to play with. Right, so there are none in this at the moment, so it's offering me the name Master A. It's got the size correct, it's pulling that in from what's already there. I can specify margins. At the moment, there are no margins specified. Probably is a good idea to add them. I will have a look at... what does 10 pixels look like? That might be okay. On the other hand, I might need more. I don't know. Because it's digital and it's going on an iPad, I don't really have to think about the margins too much. But I might want to put some margins there, so I'm reminded not to put anything that close to the edges that I wouldn't actually be able to write on it. So I will put that in. That doesn't look bad. The blue area is showing me the margin. Other than that, I don't need to think about a thing. Now, let me have a look in here. The only issue I've got with that is it's cut that in half, but I think we'll get away with it. I do think we'll get away with it, that is one square. So that bit there is one size of the square that I'm working with. So I think we will get away with it. Okay, so I've got my first master. How many masters I'm going to need, I don't know at this point. It depends on the type of pages. But if I want a cover, I can make a cover that's just something that I like the look of. It doesn't need to be a master. But has anybody ever heard the term dashboard in relation to a paper organiser? Have you, Mike?
No.
No, I'd never heard it either. Until I watched this video on YouTube. YouTube's got a lot to answer for. Oh, you watch this, you might like this. One was in Chinese. And I thought, do they just assume that I understand Chinese? Because I didn't. A dashboard in paper terms is what you and I would probably call a divider. But they call them dashboards. And they're really highly designed. So at the moment, I don't particularly think I need a cover that is a master. But dividers stroke dashboards might be an idea. See, Deb watches the same videos I do. Oh, let's have a look. What does Neil say? Neil says, I think there's a market for these types of PDF for iPad. You could monetize it and make it worth your while. I could. You're quite right. Right, so I'm going to leave that one alone. I need a standard page. Things I need to think about at this stage are, do you want page numbers? Do you want sections? And what content are you putting in there? So I've said it's a holiday planner, but also a memory book. I did it as something to help organise my mum. She had things to send and they weren't top of her mind. One was cards to America and cards to Canada, and you basically have to send them via snail mail in the middle of October. And she wasn't in Christmas mode in the middle of October. Well, she was in Christmas mode from about June, wasn't she? But not sending Christmas cards. So every year it was like, oh, it's the day tomorrow, and we all had to dash off and sort it out. So I put together a paper-based thing, and I put it in, I'll dig it out for next week if I can find it. It was a plastic wallet thing in a book, and you slotted the pages in. And you could even use a non-permanent marker on the actual wallet part that the page was in, which she liked the idea of. So we did things like calendars and we did things like lists. So those are the kind of things that I'm thinking about here. So shout out any content that you would put in a holiday planner. Now, we don't do Thanksgiving, but we know you do. So we might as well do Thanksgiving as well. But first of all, we're going to need a cover, aren't we? Which I'll add in as a page down here. So I want to insert one page before, and I actually want this to be before page 1. And it doesn't need a master page because it's going to be our page. Have you thought of doing that? Excellent. So here's my cover page. So this one's going to be our holiday planner, so I need to put these in. Good grief, Deb started her cards in August. Handmade. Christmas cards are going to be interesting this year, aren't they?
I was thinking about that.
Yeah. Like buying stamps. Oh, no, it's all right. Amazon do stamps. That's okay. It's lovely, isn't it, when you get a handmade card? Beautiful they can be. But I don't think you'd want one from me. What digital do? I'm not great with paper. Right, so holiday planner. Holiday planner 2020. Excellent. And of course, we need some festive fonts, don't we? Now, I think I do have festive fonts installed. We probably don't want Angry Birds, do we? I've got some nice ones. I do like Australia and the Atlantic one. Problem I've got with Australia is it doesn't have numbers, as you can see. So my 2020, which is in there somewhere, there's my 2020 that you can't see. Crying out loud. No, I don't want to do that. I just want to select this here. You're not making it easy for me, are you? Right, there we go. There's my 2020. I happen to have a secondary font, which is this one, Atlantic Script, which isn't bad. But basically, you just need something to make the front cover look nice. If we're going to do that, I think that's going to have to be bold, and that can be a whole bag of hurt in itself that it doesn't support it. But it should support putting a border on it, which will make it look almost identical. Then we need to think of Christmassy themes and things. So, where would you head for Christmas images to put in your planner? And one of the best places is Pixabay. So I've already done a search. I just put in Christmas, and I recognise that one, which is a Christmas tree, Xmas Christmas tree. Do you remember that one, Mike? It was a blue one, and we used it last year in a double-page spread for the Christmas ladies after. So something like this, you can use and make a beautiful spread of. I'm not logged in at the moment, but it should still let me download it at that size. No, you're not going to, are you? Fair enough. We'll just do that size if you're happy with that. Then there we go. So I'm not a robot. So you don't even need an account to make these work. Then you will have. Will that work for the cover? I think that will work for the cover. We'll do that for the cover. So I will go and find it, which is in my downloads folder. And simple matter of dragging and dropping on there. I foresee I'll use this on more than one page. But for the moment, I'll get it on there and scale it and put it at the back, for which I'll need the layers palette, which know your textiles. Now, I've had to make my screen smaller for broadcasting, so sometimes it's very difficult to find exactly what I'm looking for because it's closed it on me. So it should be in View the Studio and Layers. Do we have layers showing? No, we don't. And I didn't want index. That wasn't what I wanted. View Studio Layers. And it should come up on this side. So the only reason we can't see the text, where have you just put that to in there, is because it's behind the image. So we'll bring that to the front and we'll select that and make sure that that is white. So slide these all the other way and now they're white. So you can go crazy with this because it's digital. If you were printing it out, oh, way, way, way more trouble. But if it's digital, you can go absolutely crazy with it. So I'm just giving myself a little bit more space to put this bit in. I want you there and I want the text down. I am going to have to fiddle with this text to make sure I'm either going to have to change the font. I might find a more Christmassy font. Or change the border on it because I'm scaling it, and when you scale it, it goes crazy. So I will probably do something else with that, and I will turn off the grid so you can get an idea of what it's actually going to look like, which is quite nice. Liking that. Right, when it comes to fonts, we need more Christmassy fonts. And we can get more Christmassy fonts. Search for fonts. 1001 fonts is a good one, but the one I like is Da Font. And the benefit of Da Font is you can search by genre. So we've got fancy and it's got cartoon fonts, and you know how many cartoon fonts I need for MacBites. But you've also got in here holidays. So we have decorative, we have fire and ice. So yeah, probably not quite Christmassy. You might need to put holiday, or you might be able to put Christmas. Let me have a look. Holiday, Valentine, Easter, Halloween, Christmas. So these might be the perfect Christmas font for you. That one I love. I do have Snow Winter. I do like that one. Right, so that's where you go to find them. When you've got them, like Snow Winter, let's see what that one would look like. In Snow Winter, that worked really nice. Let's go get it. And now it's not typing. Do not even think about it. Come on. What is it doing? Right, it must be somewhere in here. There it is. I know I have it because I used it on last year's poster. And the only issue with that is it looks like it's got some black on it. So we could do with changing that, even though that's set to white. It's the fill that's white. What else could we do with it? Because that does not look good as it is. What else could we do with this text that might make it look a whole lot better? Let me get so I can look at my shop in here. So we've got budget, pages, expenses. Okay, make a note of that. A gift list. Do I have to give other people gifts, Neil? Good grief, when did this happen? Is it not just what I want? We'll put that in. We will. Anybody got any ideas what we could do with this? Because we've got a problem with it at the moment. It's a lovely decorative font. We've made it white so we can see it on a dark background, but we've now got problems with the secondary part of it that is black. But how could we fix that? Oh, come on. You know the answer to this. You know you do. Up here, we have blend modes, and we can fiddle around with the blend modes and see if any of them, see all the little stars coming alive here? So we could fiddle around with these until we get something that looks nice. We might need to change the colour from white, because black and white can be quite awkward when it comes to it. So that's grey. We don't like that. Nothing's working really well. Oh, hang on. That one's not bad. We've got the full effect of it with that one. Contrast negate. Amazing, isn't it? Now I've gone off the font, but you get the idea. You are, at this point, creating the front cover. Right, so what have we got here? Budget, pages and expenses and a gift list. Right. Well, we'll start off. What I would actually do, let's go back to the pages here. I want now to put extra pages in, so I'm going to put some extra pages in. Let's put sort of 5 pages in. We're definitely going to use them. We want them after page 1. We don't particularly need a master page yet, but we might come round to that way of thinking. We'll see how it goes. And there's our pages. Right, one of the things I would put, first of all, is seriously, remember last year. And when you think about remembering last year, Mike and I in particular can remember last year, can't we, dear?
Plenty of it.
Oh, yes. So let's put remember last year. Which looks like we've got a border of black on that, which I don't want. So wherever my font is. Oh, good grief, I've got stuff hanging off here. Swatches stroke. Let's take the stroke off it and let's make it a nice dark blue. Other way around and get rid of that. Excellent. Right, well, basically as you're remembering last year, there should be like 3 things. Based on last year, what don't you want to do this year? So what I would do, get a copy of that, take it down, and literally put, let's not. So the things that you don't want to do, that you did last year. And then leave space underneath, so I can actually do that. Let's get a table and put that down there. We don't want it looking like that, but I'll come back and format that in a moment. So let's not, let's do, and what's most important this year, which I think this year is probably a very good question. So most important. And what I'm doing with this table is eventually I will have that so I can put lines in it. So we'll get rid of that. We'll take that one up. Now let me in here. Right. We only need 1 column. We do not need the other columns. So in here I can take that down to just 1 column. That gives us lines there. I can change this to how many lines I need. So if I wanted an extra one, I can up it to 5, but I don't. I think 3 lines is probably enough there. And stretch it down to give a little bit more room. Right, not bad as far as it goes, but we've got these solid lines and they don't look great. So I'm going to line that up with the text to make sure all of these line up. And then in the formatting of the table, so we have a table format in here. You can change the frame on it, so whether there's a fill or a stroke, etc. At the moment it's saying there isn't any, so let me get in there and select these. What I don't want in the cell is I don't want anything. Stroke and fill, here we go. I don't want the left and I don't want the right. So at the moment it's set to nothing. I should be able to get rid of that and that. So let's take that away with none on that side and none on that side. Does that take it away? Excellent. So although it's a table, it now looks like lines. With what's left, they're black and the text is blue. So what we've got in there, we need to change the colour of this to a palish blue. And if you look what it's doing, it's actually putting it around the edge because that was what was selected. So what we need to do in here is not have this selected. We need to have the top and bottom lines and the intermediate lines, which looks like that one. So you can see they get selected. Let's zoom in so you can see it. Right, the bits that are dark blue, all 4 of those lines are selected. And then in here we can put a very pale blue on it. Something like that. That looks like a notepad my mum used to have. So let's not, let's do. So I'm holding the Option key down and copying it. So I can put that down there, and then obviously I would make sure that the spacing was spot on, which it isn't quite going to be. We might not need 3 lines for what's most important, but there we go. So let's see that. And we have our first page. What gifts were re-gifted? That's a really good one actually, isn't it? If you've had a gift and you've sent that gift on to somebody else, that's a good one. I mean, I'm impressed. You guys have got so many things here. The one row table. Yep, nothing wrong with that. But what I would do with that lot, now I've got that there, is equal that up. So it's in the middle. And we've got our first page. One column. Yeah, never mind. One column, one row. I use tables. It's easier to say I need less gap or I need more gap than it would be if they were lines. But obviously, because Affinity Publisher came out so long after Affinity Designer, you're used to putting lines in and then putting spaces, etc. Right, so we've got that one. Same principle if we want... so what should we go for first? We've got meals and invites, haven't we? Budget's a good one, isn't it? Budget's a good one. So we'll add a budget to this. Although I don't think I would put it quite that close to the beginning. I don't want to be reminded about the finance that early, but we'll go with it. So budget. Okay, let's get that in the middle. And then underneath that, I'd probably put another table. Now, what would I need in a budget table, Mike? Me not doing these things. I would probably want it about that big and centred before I go any further. I probably would not want quite as many lines. Would we separate the budget into like gifts and food, or would it be an overall budget? Because that's going to determine what columns you need.
I'd split it up.
Would you?
Yes.
You just want more pages, don't you? So what's this first one then? If this is budget...
Food. Oh, well, type. Type, category.
What do you mean type, category?
Category.
I want to say something budget. Food budget.
Food budget.
Food
right.
budget. There we go. Budget for food. Right, and then you need to think about what columns you would need. Now, I like to have lots of space. So I tend to go in here and take this down. 20 should be enough, shouldn't it? And then I stretch it out so I've got a little bit more room. Column-wise, you're definitely going to need what, aren't you? So, item, that'll do. What do you need next? Store it's from, price it is. What do you want to track?
Price.
You definitely need price, but
Yeah.
I think price would come in the end, wouldn't it?
All right, store. Where are you getting it from?
You could put category of item, couldn't you? But you might only need 3 columns. You might need the date that you need to buy it by. So really, it's up to you here, and this is the beauty of it, because you're making your own and you're not buying one. So
Toblerone tracker.
A Toblerone tracker.
That could be next week's demo.
We've given up on that, Neil. There's no holding him. No, I've thought of something that's most important. Quantity. Talking of Toblerone. There you go. So I'm keeping it fairly straightforward. This is
Santosh
probably...
has said quantity.
Yes, quantity is a good one. Excellent. Right. Actually, Deb's quite right. The menu planner would come first and then you would put the food budget together. But just to show principles here and what meals you're buying for, indeed. Right. What I would do with this is make it that it is centered vertically. I might centre that other than that, but I'm not sure. And I might change the colours and stuff. But basically, we want it to look Christmassy, and it doesn't look Christmassy. So that's one issue. So same principle that we did with the stroke and fill on the other one is, what do we want on the left and right? Well, we probably do want left and right. So I would have it maybe half, but maybe let's Christmassy it up a bit. Let's make it more red and Christmassy. There we go. Needs to be Christmassy. Right. Just not blood red. Oh, but why not? Now, another thing I would probably be thinking here is what I could put behind it, etc. But I need to do something with that font because that's not Christmassy at all, is it? Now, whether I format the rest of this table depends on how much of this is going to be typed and how much is going to be handwritten on the iPad when you get to the iPad end. So I'll do the top bit of this and see if we've got something that looks decorative but readable. So not my comic things, although you could do, couldn't you? It's not really the look we're looking for. That one's not bad, but we probably don't want something that's very difficult to read or something like that either. So something nice. Couture's nice if it was a bit smaller. So how about that? And we can then change that to the same colour if we go into the swatches, up to that. Oh, you're kidding me. This is Catalina 2 weeks on. And if I say yes, that's fine. It'll say reboot. Yeah, later. So not happening now. In fact, that's a good reminder to actually save it, seeing as though everything else is so finickety. Right, okay. And did that actually do it? No, it didn't. Flip that round. What are you doing? It's going from black, it's not going red, and yet it was red. Just pick that up. And I want that flip round, and you're not flipping round. It's in a mood with me. Fair enough, I'll deal with that later, but we've got the item in there, although it shouldn't look like that. Then I'd probably be looking at decorating it. Now, you came up with a good idea. Yes, we need to add some images. We do. Allergies is a great one. We need the meal planner itself. So what's going to be on the menu? So I'm working on a principle here of this being our style. So why are you not picking that up? I think it's very upset with me at the moment. Let's take that one. Yep, we've got that one. So we'll go down to this one. I remember doing this for my mum. Do you remember the Scrooge meal we did?
Yeah.
She loved it. The menu. Right, I don't believe we've got... No, we don't, so that'll do. And I centred the last one, but I hadn't centred that one, so I'll centre it there. Right, lots of different ways to do this. Do you want it in a table? Do you want it categorised? What I did for my mum, I wonder if we could find that for next week. It had pictures all over the place, like it was Scrooge's meal, in essence. So I would start off with this. I'm holding the Option key down and dragging down, and I'm starting with the starter. What should we have for the starter? Oh, Mike's tempted now. He's enjoying himself.
Toblerone.
We can't have Toblerone for a starter, Mike, honestly.
How about prawn cocktail?
You want prawn cocktail?
Yeah.
Right, I would probably make this bit a different font that's easier to read. So again, something like, where's that one gone that we liked? Not the one in lights. Couture, that one's nice. Right, so you want a prawn cocktail, do you? Actually, you know, I'm thinking that would look good as the starter font and leave that alone, maybe. This is what I'm like when I start getting designy, but never mind. Right, the other thing was, do you remember what Scrooge had?
No more bread.
No more bread! Deb says chocolate. Deb's thinking of you. Yeah, I think he had, it was a broth, wasn't it? It was a beef broth. But we'll say we'll have soup as well. And literally just a case of going down there with what that is. And obviously you would then use this to fill in the what food you need, etc. But just a matter of copying and pasting and sorting out. Bear in mind at this stage you might not know, in which case you could leave these blank and fill them in by hand, because it's going to your iPad, remember. But this one's going to be the main course. What are you having for the main course? Now, I appreciate, if we say this is Christmas...
Turkey.
We never have turkey for Christmas, Mike.
Lamb.
We have lamb. We like lamb. So I'll bring that down, and lamb with all the trimmings is what we'll have. Good evening, Tracy. Okay, lamb. And then we'd list all the things we like to have. I must admit, one of my favourites, and I don't eat it anymore, was roast potato. Roast potatoes. Roast potato.
Whilst you're working on the Christmas menu, I'm working on the shopping.
But same principle. Now, like I say, what you could do is if you don't know what you're having here, then you could do one of two things. You could either take the pen tool, put a starting point, hold the shift key down, and that will limit you to a line, if as long as you don't click. So click, hold the shift key down, and then click again. And that will give you a line. The line you can then format, so you can have that as thick as you want. You can have that whatever colour you want. And you would then write on the line, oh, look at this, good grief. We've got roast potatoes. We've got turkey, Brussels sprouts. Neil's being mean. Sprouts. Mint sauce with the lamb, good shout. Mike does like that. Roast veggies. Oh, I'm coming to you guys for Christmas. You're amazing. So just think with the line. That's an option if you don't know.
You think you're leaving here at Christmas?
That's true. Yeah. Christmas is going to be here and we'll be eating what we've got, so it could well be a pot noodle. Right, your other option, and there's no benefit to it in this circumstance, unless it's a list. So if it's we're having lamb, and then we've got roast potato and carrots and etc., 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 you could, again, use a table and do like I did before, which is take away that, so it's only one column, and then take away the rows, because we're not going to have 17 vegetables, are we? But we could well have sort of 8 of something, and then make that bigger to give you more of a gap, and then format the thing. Where's the table format gone? I know this is hideous and it looks complicated, but this one and this one. And with that, we don't want a side on it. We don't want that side on it. But for each line, we do want it, and we want it, you know, maybe that palish blue thing again. And that way, if you're writing in multiple items, you get them all at an equal level. But if it's one item, then you could get away with just a line and format the line. So completely up to you. What will Lola have? Tripe sticks. Oh, good call. She's gone crazy at the moment on dentist sticks. So dentist sticks could be a thing.
That's because they're big.
They are the biggest treat, aren't they? She's very, very lucky. Right, the few things that you haven't mentioned, which you'll think about when you need them, I know. As you're coming up to it, how about planning the week before? So what needs to happen 1 week out? So let's get that, which is the title at the top. It's not picking it up. That's better. Right, got it. We'll grab that in the middle. We'll put that down here. And literally put in there 1 week before. And what are you doing 1 week before? Or I would be doing 1 week. What on earth? This is crazy. Stop. Right. 1 week before. But I have with this font a problem that it doesn't have numbers. So what I'll do is we'll make it our couture font. So what would you be doing 1 week before? Working on the principle, you might want to have different categories. I will put that in. C-7 days, yes. Defrosting the turkey, does that take 7 days? Do you remember that Christmas where we thought it was going to take that long? We nearly had to get a blowtorch on it. Mum said, leave it outside, it'll be fine. So it was in the freezer shed. It wasn't fine. It was not fine. It took days and days and days. But I think there could be up to sort of 20 things to do for a start. So pull that down so we've got lots of room. Assuming that some of this is going to be typed in, I'll make sure that that is aligned in the centre vertically. I probably don't need that number of columns though. So is this going to be 1 list, 2 lists? How would we categorise it? I'm having a think about that now. What's on the week before? Oh, you've got lots of them here. Vegetarian main dishes, yes. Shopping, yes. Defrost it. Neil's mum used to leave it in the porch. Gathering ingredients. Yeah, I would guess maybe one day, well, a week before, you probably do need to do certain things like food prep. But whatever they are, let's say we're going to put them into one column and we'll list them all out in there. What you could do with 2 columns is actually tweak it slightly. We don't want to bend it. No, let's take that. Can we take that? That's what I want. We could put the actual time or day in there. So we could put in there the date, which is fantastic. We've got it in white text. That won't do anybody any good. So let's flip that round. My flipping round isn't working. And that's not right either. It's not selected, is it? I think I'm going to need to restart Publisher, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that's date, and that is what. And then in there, I would probably format that as well and put pretty pictures behind it. So let's go back to the pretty pictures, show you how I would use some of these. So we've done that one that was quite dark, but there were some quite nice light ones in there. So for our gift guide, that's pretty good. Like that for the gift guide. That's another one that would work well for the gift guide. And then we've got general ones like that just look really nice. Or that. So let's take that one. We'll have whatever size we can get. No, I'm not a robot. Still not a robot. Not a robot. So we've got that one. We will take that one as well. And that leaves 2. So Christmas gifts or Christmas gifts. We could use both, couldn't we? Because you'll see that that one is a PNG, so it's transparent. So we can put that in the corner, even if we have that one on the other side, and it should work okay. Should do. All right, so that's the last one I'm taking, so don't get giddy about it. All right, so we've got 4 of those. So our gift guide, which could be on the last page that we've got here, let's create the background ready for the gift guide. I trust we're all going to follow along with this in the week, and I'm going to see your attempts at this. No, I don't want to draw a table. I want to move that and scale it considerably. So I'll have that. I'm going to have it hanging off the end because I do need a decent amount of space to put my gift guide or my gift list. And the other one is that one. So let's bring that one in. This is the transparent one. So it's opened it up in a separate window. I need to go to the layers at the top. I'm going to unlock that so I can copy it, and I'm going to paste it into here. It's obviously far too big, but I'm going to put it in the bottom corner hanging off the end, and it'll look fine like that. And then I can put my gift list on it. So this is what I'm giving to people, which again, it's just a table. Put that on there. Obviously, probably want it to have less than that. I might make that one a double spread, but just give yourself a bit more room. So that one's going to need to be who and what at a minimum, but you might want to record the price or something else. There we go. So that's who and what you're giving, etc. So let's get that centered vertically. And obviously I would take more time and I would make it, I would prettify it. I would prettify it and make that as big as I can by possibly moving it up a bit like that. And it's a matter of going through the whole thing. So let's have a look what you're saying here. It's not even Tracy's birthday and I'm going to have to start thinking about corporate Christmas greeting. It's a tricky year this year with any kind of greeting. It's always been in the format of a formatted email. Maybe you should do a video. Like a keynote style video. Send everybody to it. If you're having guests, do you need staging areas for food and gifts? These are all fantastic ideas. When does the tree go up and who's decorating it? Handily, Deb. Our tree's already up. We need some more balls though, don't we?
We probably do, don't we?
Yeah, but you know what Lola's like. Oh, drinks and who gets the booze. Deb's on fire here. Can you tell I've never really done this for real? The Christmas mum died was like, let's just lock the door and come out next year. And that's what we did. So I've never really had to do the whole lot. But what I'm attempting to build here is that I've got some pages that I can repurpose. So this page of like the gift guide, who and what, I can repurpose that. If I do that, that is Control and W on a Mac. I am not sure of the key for that on Windows, but it shows you what that page is going to look like, irrespective of the fact that the graphics are hanging off it, etc. So over here, the graphics are hanging off it. But I can grab that graphic and maybe move it in a bit, and I can start moving it around, and it's still showing me, let's get this text, it's still showing me what that's actually going to look like without me having to do anything else. But when I Control and W again, I get what's hanging off the actual area that is the printable area. So far I've got the cover, and I've got the Remember last year, and I've got the food budget. I've half got a menu, need to finish the rest of it. And I'm going to need multiple lists for what to create before and what to create, 2 days, 1 day. That'll be baking and stuff, won't it? Don't I sound like I know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
That's because Mum used to make mince pies and they were fabulous. And then we've got our gift guide, which again, much better if we can see it without that. Okay, so principle of what I now need to do is just to rinse and repeat and make sure I've got all the pages that I actually need. When it comes to converting it and taking it over to the iPad, that is what we will be doing next week. So if you think of anything else that I need to include, you've probably got up till Wednesday to let me know. Tables and when they're picked up and set up. Yeah, and you need things like table settings, the centerpiece thing, where to buy the gifts. Well, Tracy, if it's not from Amazon, it's not happening this year, isn't it? Because you're not getting me out the front door when the guests are arriving. This is all a moot point, isn't it? I think the bit that was mentioned earlier about Zoom. What are the Zoom settings for this meal? That would be brilliant. But yeah, we will carry on with this. So once I've tidied it up a little bit and I got the extra pages in, then we'll see how we can take this and get it onto an iPad.
Are we inviting iPad 1, 2, 3, 4 for Christmas dinner?
Yes. We should do that.
Yeah.
We should have a virtual Christmas dinner. That would work well. So I'm going to save that before I lose anything else, because it's in a very upset mood with me. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to close it down. And we don't need Santa Claus modifying. And what that will do is, because it needed my permission, or the system permission, to run that thing, that should solve the problem of me not being able to change the colour of the font. It's a Catalina thing. It did that to me in the middle of a live session and said, Zoom needs permission to do X, Y and Z. This was like the 90th time. So I did it, and then it said, you now need to close Zoom and go back in again. And I thought, well, that's not going to work, is it? So I had to wait until I'd finished. Not the best. Now, did I have Keynote running or not? Yeah, seems I did.
I've got a question.
Freebies, yes.
Is Johnny awake?
Whisper quietly.
Because he hasn't said anything in the chat for ages.
I should have mentioned Hanukkah, then he might.
So,
just a thought.
Maybe he doesn't do the cooking.
Maybe he doesn't. No, Granny Isaacs does. Yeah. Granny Isaacs makes amazing things. Now, we've just been talking about images for Christmas. Another couple of things that I did this week were some free stock images. This time, the links that I think I've put in there, well, it's unsplash.com. But I searched for tech, and there's some really great images there that I may be persuaded to use for certain things. Particularly when you haven't got a keyboard like that, because my keyboard doesn't look like that. Different keyboard. I also got some images for a podcasting thing that I'm working on, which were very, very nice.
Tracy says she's doing better than Johnny. It looks like it, Tracy.
Now, that one I thought was particularly interesting because when we talked last week of the blue snowball and how good it was, now, our blue snowball was the white one. Was it actually called?
It was called a blue snowball.
They then had names. That one was the black ball, which that one is, and I think the other one was... The white one definitely had a name. But we mentioned last week that if you have that hanging off an arm as opposed to standing up from an arm, that the blue logo goes upside down. And there you go. There is the upside down blue logo. But you can get all of those images and many, many more from unsplash.com, which have been in the news this week, haven't they?
Yeah.
The one that you looked at. Somebody used an image, don't go there.
Oh.
It was all very bad news. We'll talk about that on a Marooned. It's a Marooned topic, I feel.
Yeah.
Right, now, last week, Mike was doing his meeting attendance. Now he's tracking who turned up. Oh, it's like espionage this, isn't it, Mike? All right, let's come out of there. Make sure that you can see my screen. There you go, you should be good to go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so last week I created a simple pivot table. What I did first is I showed you how to create this tracker, particularly the number attended, the percent attended, and the flag at the end. And I've done it for a number of years. So the idea is you've got a club, a social group, or even a company, and you are tracking attendance of monthly meetings going back to 2017, which is when the club, the association, the company, whatever it was first formed. So last week, after I built the tracker, I created a simple pivot table that showed how many meetings each person had created and what was the percentage of the meetings, or what was the percentage that they attended of the meetings held just for 1 year. Today's requirement is similar information, but for the entire period, so 2017 to 2020, and take into account that 2020 isn't complete. We haven't even had our October meeting yet. And I also want to make it future-proof. So in future years, the pivot table only needs to be refreshed and not recreated. So when we add another sheet for 2021 and 2022, etc., we just update the pivot table. Now, there's a few things that you need to do for preparation. As you always say, future self will thank present self for doing it.
Yep.
That's the phrase, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So the first thing is, with your data, structure it as an Excel table. Excel always works better with table-based data, and for what we're going to do to combine this data anyway, using Power Query, you need to have the data stored as a table. If I was to click data from table and my data wasn't a table, it will create a table for me, and it will just call the table table 1, table 2, etc. And I have deliberately given the tables specific names, and I'll explain why later. So again, it's a case of trying to set it up correctly. So I've already created tables for 2017, 18 and 19, and if I click into 2017's table and go to the table design tab and look on the left hand side of the screen, I've called the table TBL_2017. Now I was just going to call it 2017, but the table name can't start with a number. I was then going to call it TBL 2017, but I can't do that either, because TBL 2017 is a cell reference. With Excel now having 1,000 columns, you can see that we go up to XFD. We used to go up to IV when we had 256 columns, but now we've got XFD. So if I was to whiz back, there is a column TBL and there's a row 2017. Okay, so what I did is I named the table TBL_2017. I've named this one TBL_2018, this one TBL_2019, and at the moment this data is not stored as a table. So with my cursor in there, I'll click Insert Table, select the range for the table, go up to the Table tab and call this one TBL_2020. So there is logic, and you'll actually see why I'm doing this shortly. Hello. You come to learn about Excel?
Yes.
We've got a furry visitor.
Hello.
Hello.
Would you like me to take you outside?
You probably want to play football when you get out there.
Not at this time of night, you don't, madam.
Okay, so whilst you deal with the dog, I'll deal with the spreadsheet. Right, so yes, when you build a table, what it will do is it will automatically format it. We've done this many, many times in other demos. So I'm going to first of all clear the formatting. I don't particularly need any formatting, so I'll just clear the formatting. And I'll also clear the filter buttons, so they can go as well. Also, I'm going to give column P a proper column heading. Because that didn't have a column heading, it was just a blank cell P1. When you build a table, every cell, every column heading cell has to have a name. And if it doesn't have a name, then it will just assign it column 1, column 2, etc., which isn't very helpful. So I'll just call that flag. And I'll also flip it around so that it's formatted exactly the same as the others. There we go. And I'll center it. Okay, I don't want to center it from top to bottom. I want to have it on the bottom of the cell. So that's creating a table and just tidying things up a little bit. And I'll just save that file. Now the next thing I need to do is combine all the data together. As I said, ultimately I want to create a pivot table, and the pivot table is going to be based on this data and this data and this data and this data. So I've got a couple of options. One option is to create 4 queries, and each query is linked to a table, and then create a 5th query to pull the data together from those other 4 queries. But that is not scalable, because that would mean that each year I'd need to create a new query for the table in the next sheet. So assuming there's a 2021, which will look identical to 2020, but the data will be different. And I'll create a table called TBL 2021. Then I would actually need to go up to the query menu, and I'd need to create a new query. Now that's fine if I'm looking after the spreadsheet, but in many cases somebody sets up the spreadsheet, hands it over to other people, and they then just have to get on and use it. And then when it comes to the start of the next year, they then have to bring that person back in or find somebody else with some Excel expertise, and then it can get updated, but it's easier if it sort of self-updates. The other thing is, if you were going to do it that way, you then have to modify the combining query to include the 5th 2021 query. So yes, you can do it that way, but it's not ideal. So the solution that I've come up with is to create one query, not one query per table, but just one query that basically loops through all the tables in the file. And this is how I'll do it. I'll go to Data, Get Data, From Other Sources, Blank Query. So we've done this several times before. When you go to Data, Get Data, you can choose where your data's coming from. Is it coming from another Excel file? Is it coming from a CSV file? Is it coming from a database, etc., etc.? But in this example, I'm going to go to Other Sources, Blank Query. That will open up the query editor. And in this query editor, to create this new query, which basically just pulls the data in from all the other tables, I'm going to put equals excel.currentworkbook. Okay, equals excel.currentworkbook. And what that will do when I press enter or click the tick is it gives me an error. Okay, I forgot the open bracket, close bracket. Now that should work. There we go, that's better. What it does, what Excel.current workbook does, is it gives me a list of all the tables in the workbook. And if I was to go and do a refresh, having added 2021, that would be in there as well. And that's what I'm saying about making the whole thing future-proof. All the user would have to do is refresh the pivot table, and it will refresh the queries behind the scenes. And that's why I've created tables. Not only does Excel work better with tables when you have structured data, but it makes a lot more logical sense, and it makes it easier if you can do it like this. So you're loving Power Query, Neil. Good. And hopefully you can see why I'm setting things up the way I'm setting things up, because it will certainly make things easier in the future. Just that little bit of extra thought up front, or to put it another way, you don't do it right up front, you hit a brick wall and then you have to go back and do it anyway. So you might as well benefit from my experience and my going back and doing things again to get it right first time. Okay, I hear Elaine coming back up the stairs, so I'm assuming Lola has been out, done her business, played a bit of football, had a treat, and is now ready to sleep. Or maybe not. Maybe she's ready to come back in and learn about Power Query. Anyway, oh, she is. Hello. Hello, you're back. Right. To actually combine the data together, you'll notice that against this content column, there's a little double-headed arrow. If I click that double-headed arrow, what it will do is it will give me all the column headings from all the tables. Now, all the column headings on all 4 tables are identical. If they weren't, it would combine the column headings together. So if one table was January to December and the other one was Jan to Dec, then they'd all be listed there. So again, if you can have some consistency and make sure the column headings are the same across all the tables, it makes it easier. I've just been telling everyone that she's been out, she's played football.
Oh yes.
She's had a treat. Or is that what
Yes.
she's waiting for now?
She's waiting for a treat.
Right, okay. And then it's time to settle, yes? Now, there are some columns that I don't actually need, so I'm going to take the tick out of number attended and percent attended and flag, because I'm not interested in keeping that information in the report that I'm going to create. I'll also untick use original column name as prefix, because if I leave that ticked and the column name, as you can see, is called content, then what I will end up getting is content.name, content.january, content.february, content.march, etc, etc. So I'm going to take the tick out of that and then click on OK. And what it's now done is it's expanded the data. So we've got the heading, which is the name of the person. Then we've got January all the way through to December. And then we've got the name of the table. So we've got table 2017, table 2018, table 2019, table 2020. Like that. Okay. Now, the data isn't in the right format to be able to create the pivot table that we want. But there's a few things I need to do before I do the thing I need to show you to basically break up the table. I'm going to rename that column and call it name, which I can't do because there's already a name column over at the other end. So I'm going to rename that one and call it year. And I'm going to rename the first column to be name. Okay, the reason that it called that column at the end name originally was because that's what it was called in that little table, which I then expanded. Then I'm going to select all the columns except name and year. So January through to December. And I just did the first one and shift and clicked on the last one. And then go to transform and unpivot columns. And what that does is it takes what the data as it was, which is, okay, it was a table, but it was a summary table, and it looked like a pivot table, and it reverses it. I'm sure I've talked about unpivot before, but it basically takes that data, which was summarized into a table, and converts it back into a plain list. So we've now got 780 rows, and for each person we've got the January to December of that year. And then if we keep going through, we've got January to December of 2018 for those same people. So there's Taylor Booth again, January to December for 2019, and so on and so on. So that unpivot is a really, really useful command to unbake the cake, as we say.
We do.
Okay. Right, the next thing I need to do is remove the TBL from the year column. And to do that, I'm going to select that column and go to Transform, Extract, Last Characters, and select 4. And what that will do is that will keep the last 4 characters. And then I'm going to rename the attribute column and call it month, and the value column and call it status, and that is whether the person attended the meeting or not. And that's it for setting up the query. So I need to exit out of the query editor by clicking on File. Now, if I did close and load, that will take the 780 rows and 4 columns and dump it into a new sheet in the file. And I don't want to do that because the data already exists in the file in those 4 sheets, 2017, 18, 19, 20. Okay, it's not in the right format that I can build a pivot table, but it exists. And I don't really want to duplicate the data. So what I'm going to do is go to File, Close and Load to. Yes, go and settle.
She has had more than is good for her.
Well, we'll be interrupting my Excel demo so that I can deal with you. Go on, settle. Right. So let's just do that bit again because I got rudely interrupted by a dog. And I'm going to just delete that query and redo it. So hang on a minute.
You can keep trying, but she's still there.
She is.
Aren't you?
Right.
You've had enough. You're not having any more.
Okay, I think I've just lost my query that I've just set up.
See, that's your fault.
Yes.
Mm.
Never mind. I will go through it again. It will only take me a couple of minutes. So data, get data.
Neil's put a couple of things in. I don't know if they're questions or trying to get you back on track.
Create a connection. Yeah, I was going to create a connection. That's exactly what I was going to do, Neil. I was going to create a connection. If you create a connection, then it doesn't actually load the data into the spreadsheet. So I'm just going to open up the query editor. So I've just realized that yes, I have lost what I was doing, but I will recreate it. Lola, go and settle.
Starving, Dada.
Reminds me of Mayor.
Yep. Only he would pre-bark. She's just chunnering.
Right, where were we? I'm going to recreate this query. So query from other sources, blank query. And then put here equals Excel dot current workbook, open bracket, close bracket. Then expand the content column, remove the columns that I don't want, remove that tick so it doesn't use the original column name, click OK. Then I renamed that and called it year, and I also changed that so it only kept the last four characters. And then I changed that to name, and then I selected all the columns with the month, and I did an unpivot. See how quicker it is second time around. Your son does this to you when you're trying to host parents and community meetings. Yes, children and furry animals. Working with children. Right, so yes, as Neil said, if I go up to File and I do Close and Load 2, if I choose Only Create a Connection, what that will do is that will ensure that the data, the 780 rows of data, doesn't actually get loaded into the spreadsheet, it just gets loaded into memory. So there's my query, the one that I accidentally deleted when I got distracted by the dog. So I've recreated it, but I'm going to give it a more meaningful name. So instead of just calling it query, I'm going to rename it and I'm going to call it attendance. Okay, what I also need to do is I need to get this data that's in the query, that's a combination of the data in these 4 sheets. I need to get that into the data model. And the reason I need to get that into the data model is because I need to use the data in the data model to build measures to go in the pivot table. The only way to build measures, which is what we need for the summary data, the only way to build measures is to use data that's in the data model. So if I do a right click on that query and I choose load to and make sure I keep it set to only create a connection, but tick the box that says add this data to the data model. So what that has done is it's made a copy of the data from the query and dumped it into the data model, and I can check that by going to Power Pivot Manage, and you can now see that the data is in the data model, which is where I can pull it into the pivot table from. So I'll just close that down. Okay, now if I was to build a pivot table, I'll go and create a new worksheet to build the pivot table on. And I'm just seeing a couple more questions. Yes, Paul, Power Query is only available in the Windows version of Excel. They have put something in the Mac version on the menu called Power Query or Query, but it's a very, 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 very basic cut down version of what you've got on the Windows version. And as Neil says, Power Pivot also is only available. You can do all this stuff. I was going to say you can do all this stuff in Power BI, but again, the Power BI desktop app is only available in Windows as well. Right, so if I was to create a pivot table, I'd do Insert Pivot Table, and I would choose to use data that's in the data model and click OK. I'm going to stick the pivot table in sheet 1 in A1. And what you'll notice is that it lists all the tables from this file. Attendance is the query, And we've also got these 4 tables, but we don't actually want to use the data from these 4 tables because those are the individual tables. So whenever you build a pivot table based on the data model, what Excel does is it actually shows you all the tables in this file, even though those 4 tables are not actually in the data model, because the only table that's in the data model is the attendance table, and that got there through the query. And the reason is it defaults to all. So if you go to active, what you will see, what you should see, is only tables that are being used in that pivot table. Now, right now, there are no tables being used in the pivot table. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the name column from the attendance table and drop it into rows. The reason being, I want to see the names of the people, how many meetings they've attended, and what percentage of total meetings they've attended. So now I've got, in the active section, I've got attendance, because I've chosen a column from the attendance table to use in this pivot table. So if you keep away from the all tab and just look at the active tab, then it will make your life easier. Are you back?
Oh, ignore her. We should start again.
You want more food?
She's eaten enough to
go and settle down.
Oh, yeah.
Go to bed.
Don't want to.
No. Okay, so how many meetings has each person attended? I need to display that. Now, what I could do is I could just drag one of these columns. I could actually drag the value column, and I've just realized that I didn't, when I redid the query, I didn't rename these columns. But the value column, that was actually the status. So that was the P or the A for present or absence. And if I drag that into the values section, what that does is that shows me the total number of meetings overall. So that's showing that Adam has attended 9 meetings. Now, Adam only joined the company in 2020. So Adam, it's not actually showing us that Adam has attended 9 meetings. It's showing us that there are 9 values on his row. Some of them are A for absent. Whereas for, say, Adam K, there's 45. And that 45 is made up of 12 there, and 12 there, and 12 there. So that's 36. And we haven't got, oh, there we have 9 there. Sorry, not 9 there, 9 there. Okay, so because I've dragged the value column, which as I said was the status A or P, into here, it's defaulted to a count, but that's actually giving you the total number of cells for that person across the 4 tabs that has a value in that cell. And that's not really telling us anything. That's just telling us that there were 45 meetings for that person. So I can't do it that way. And this is where measures come in. Measures give us a lot more flexibility. So to create a measure, go to Power Pivot, Measures, New Measure. And give the measure a name. I'm going to call it Meetings Available. And the formula will be equals count rows and then the name of the table, which is attendance. And then if I click OK, what it will do is it actually gives us the same result. So as it happens, I could have actually dragged the value into there, and that would have given us the same result. So that is meetings available. So that is how many meetings has that person been available to attend. Not how many have they attended, but how many have they been available to attend. The next statistic is how many did they actually attend. Now, I couldn't drag any of these in to the values section and get the result I want, because what I actually want is how many meetings did a particular person attend, or to put it another way, how many P's are there for that person across the 4 sheets. To do that, the only way to do it is a measure. So go to measure, new measure, and call this measure meetings attended. And the formula for this will be the calculate function. The calculate function in DAX, and DAX is what you use to create measures, allows you to do a calculation with a filter or a criteria. So what I want to do is I want to count the number of rows where value equals P. Now, to count the number of rows, I've already got a measure which I called meetings available, so I can actually use meetings available in here. Then a comma, and then the filter would be attendance status. You'll notice that I didn't call it status, did I? I called it value. Attendance value. You'll notice that you need to put the table name before the sheet name, before the column name, equals P. So that's an example of the calculate function, to calculate how many rows match that filter. So that's showing me that Adam attended 5 out of 9. The other Adam attended 27 out of 45. And then the final one I'll do is to do the percentage. So I can do that as another measure. Again, you can only do it as a measure. So new measure, and I'll call this one percent attended. And this one will be meetings attended divided by meetings available. And that needs to be formatted as a percentage. So there we go. There is our pivot table. That's what I was after creating. The only way to do these 2 columns was to use measures. And to use measures, you have to have the data stored in the data model. And because I was combining data from 4 sheets, then I have to use a query to combine the data. So I've used a lot of elements there to pull everything together. It's very, very powerful, Neil. And I just thought that having started this last week, I could continue it this week and just say, this is a way to pull data together. And the demo I've got for next week is going to be along similar lines, but I'm not going to reveal anything about next week until next week. Because it would spoil the surprise.
Would it?
It would.
Mm.
Yes.
Right.
Let's just say music.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay, I will pass back to you.
Right.
Yeah, Neil, you only need to update the sheets and the rest will be updated. So if I was to... can I just show this? Or yeah.
You're still looking at your screen.
Okay. Yeah, if I was to, for example, go and add in a P for present there, and then go and update the pivot table, just literally right-click, refresh it, then it will update, was it Adam K? It was Adam K There you go. It's updated that. And if I was to add in another sheet and update, it will update that as well. And it's going to save you a lot of time, as I said, against doing it the way I thought about doing it originally, which was to go into the query editor and create 4 queries. One for this table, one for this table, one for this table, one for this table, because then when you go to 2021 you'd have to create a 5th query, and you'd have to have another query that combines the 4 queries and update that one to include 2021. Okay, I will pass back to you.
Are you sure this time?
Yeah, and I will keep the dog quiet if she starts.
What do you mean if she starts? She's curled up right next
she's
to
asleep
Daddy.
now.
Having headbutted the arrival from Amazon, did you notice?
Yes.
Just because she could. Yeah, she knows if she headbutts the tech, she might get some more attention. But, you know, madam, we've been out. And what happened when that guy on the motorbike went past?
She
Didn't
barked.
like him, did you? He's making too much noise. Right, okay. Where's the slides gone? Right, slightly out of order here. But, you know, change is good as the rest. Yate. Or, as we've been calling it for at least 15 years,
Yate.
But I am now apprised it's Yate. Who's heard of Yate? It is the nearest I have ever found to tag and rename on a PC. If you have a lot of media to manage, and particularly the metadata within that media, tag and rename is fabulous. It was one of the things I could never quite replace when I moved to a Mac. I've had Yate for a while, but the latest versions have kind of brought it almost up to the same level as tag and rename. And right now it's quite important that I have that because I need to work with some meta inside some audio files. So let's go and have a look at it. Right, here are some files. You'll notice they have been pulled down from where they live. Do you know, it's such a shame Jonathan's asleep, isn't it? Because I could click on there and I could click on shows, and that is MacBites. That's where they actually live. And you get to see them from there. Ooh, Neil ripped all his CDs and used Yate. I'm probably going to be using it in a slightly different way, but let's leave the originals alone. Leave them alone. Right, these are the copies. And it's quite bizarre with this. This is the very first episode of MacBites. You can tell from the date that wasn't when it was released. But if I preview it, once it's had a think about it, which clearly it's having a long think about it, if this doesn't work, I'll change the view on the Finder. It doesn't look like that's working at all. Okay, we'll change the view on the Finder and we'll go in and have a look. Right, that is the old artwork. Despite the fact that this file has got artwork, number 9, it's refusing point blank to show it. So I need to go back through. I think we changed the artwork around 94, 95. That was the original artwork. I need to change the artwork in all these files. I may need to change other metadata, but particularly in terms of this not being just a demo, this being something that actually needs to be done, the artwork needs to be changed in these files. Now, the way that we used to do this was iTunes. And iTunes was pretty good. You could grab a bunch of files, you could bring up a window that had all of the metadata in it. It would even do multiple files. But you know the way that iTunes went. It's gone now. Though I still have an iTunes library. I'd love to know what happens to that.
I've got an iTunes library.
Yeah, well, not in Catalina.
On my other machine.
I have got an old machine, so I could load it into that. And I'm quite proud to say it is my original iTunes library. I never did the let's take everything out and start again thing. I started with it on Windows and I triaged it with BB Edit. But obviously on this machine I've got music and I don't have iTunes, and even if I did, it probably doesn't work anything like as good as it did before. I have no idea how to pronounce that one, Neil, but I did try that, I think, and I came to the conclusion there still wasn't anything on a Mac, but Yate's pretty good. So there's my problem. These do have not only cover art, but they also have chapter markers, which have art in them as well. But the best you can do is actually try clicking on one and getting it to play, and it shows you the artwork there. The other way of doing it is if you opened it with VLC, always assuming VLC's in a good mood, not bad at all. If you play that from there, so I've double clicked on it, and it's thinking about it. Where's it shoved it? It should go to the artwork. No, it's telling me there's no artwork in there. That's good, isn't it? Because we can tell there's artwork. You should be able to see that. Let's try with number 1. Come on. Love it in a demo when you know it works before the demo. No, it's not doing that. Okay, what I'll do, just so you can see it, let's see if it's any happier in QuickTime, which should also... QuickTime, where are you?
Kim's library consists of U2 on Catalina. I think mine does, because we got a free thingy, didn't
There's no
we?
escape. Yeah, there's no escape. Right, I'm trying to do an open with now, and I'm trying... There it is, I can see QuickTime. Right. Okay, so we have artwork. Not the right artwork, but we have artwork. We also have in there this sub-artwork, which is the chapter markers. So there is also that inside the file as well. Excellent. And you can tell from how blurry that is, if I make it any bigger, even blurrier, that back then the artwork size was 300 pixels square. It no longer is. So in essence, what I need Yate for is to be able to manipulate these files en masse. So let's go in and have a look at Yate. So it looks like a... let's just get started with it. It looks like a Finder window, but it is optimized to help you with audio files. So I will drag and drop these audio files, all of them, into the window here. And let's have a look what we get. So it's pointing out to the files on the desktop. So anything I do in here and then save will get written back. But in essence, what we're looking at is files in the middle. On the left-hand side, we have navigation where you can navigate through the system. At the moment, that's pointing to my personal folder on this machine. Yeah, it's my user folder on this machine. But I've dragged and dropped in the files that I'm actually interested in. I think one of the things that put me off this was the way tag and rename worked. Everything was front and centre, whereas in here, you're just left looking at a list of files. But over here, you have all of the information for these files. So clicking on the first one is the info inside it. And I remember sitting there and having to put this lot in by hand. So every time we did a show, there was an MP3 version and an M4A version. And all of this had to be put in by hand. So you can see the year, etc., the links, the fact it was a podcast. And then there used to be podcast-specific things that you could tick where, say, for instance, you want to skip it when shuffling. So if you remember back in the day of the shuffle, if you had podcasts in your library and you wanted to shuffle music, you were relying on the podcaster to put a tick in the box that says, don't play this if somebody's shuffling. We also have all of the sorting. So a sort name is different from the title. So the sort title is MacBites, but the actual title has the number in it and so forth. So there's all of that in there. The artwork's obviously a critical one. You can tell from that is the default artwork. If it wasn't the default artwork, it wouldn't have the black star down the bottom. You can also tell from it that it's a JPEG and that it's 300 pixels square. You can also see the type of artwork it is, which is... If you think about music that you've purchased, it may have a composer and a lyricist, where it was recorded. It may have a front cover, a back cover, an inside brochure, all of that. So you can have all of that inside one of these files. The more artwork you put in it, the heavier the file will be. So the file size will increase. Often the artwork is bigger than the file. So it just depends. And you can put a description in as well, which would help with accessibility. You can also put lyrics in it. Now, we use the lyrics for the show notes, which back in the day, I didn't write that lot. And I think that's a cut down version. Oh, do you remember when the prices were 89 cents? Those were the days. So that's the actual show notes. Then we've got the audio information. I have no idea why the media type is home video. It should obviously be podcast. I have no idea. Now, as soon as I change something, that goes to red because it's not saved at the moment. We have ye old save button with a floppy disk on it. So that would obviously change to red when I save it. So there we go with that one. You've also got the credits in here, which we do use. Now, the reason that some of these are blank is they were not exposed in the application that I used to push the original metadata in. So there was no option to do that. But in here, you can change all of this. So you've got all of this information you can actually add to it. So we do have an owner. Obviously, price paid and stuff is metadata that you would add. We would not add that. It would be metadata that you would add because we wouldn't know what that was. And you've got URLs, which again, this was not exposed in the application as and when that information was put in. But my use for this is mainly to manipulate these files. If I needed to reproduce these files, I can't go back to the original audio. I wish I could. In fact, that's not true. I can, as long as I can find the drive that it's on, which is at the bottom of a cupboard somewhere. But what I can't do is go back to the original edit because it was in GarageBand and the new GarageBand won't open the files. So I really don't know why we keep them, but we do. So it isn't a case of going back and re-exporting it and doing all of that work unless you want it to be, and in our case, we would now want it to be a certain audio level. So they do need reprocessing in terms of getting them to a certain audio level. But the issue that Yate solves is the artwork and the metadata inside multiple files. So this one is, I can't even see what, that's an M4A. And that has got this artwork in it. If we go through the files, so are they all the same? I swear I saw one and they weren't. So this one, number 9, is saying there's no artwork in it at all, which I know is a lie, but it's not there, so I'm going to have to add it. But it's not an issue because I do need to actually change the artwork for all of these. They are all incorrect. So the things that you would change en masse, where you actually grab hold of all of them, it's now actually showing you that you've selected multiple files and they've got multiple artworks in. But actually, when you look at them, they are all the same artwork. But that's why in the thumbnail track, it's because you've selected multiple files. But to be able to change it, it's fairly simple. So I'm going into DevonThink, which is where I actually have the artwork. So chapter markers. And I have show art as well. So this that I'm just bringing on is the 5 things that we use. One's the show art and the other 4 are the credits. So what I'm going to do, I need to take the MacBites show art, which is this one, and I need to stick it in there like that. And now it's not taking them all, is it? Come on. Oh, and then, nope, still not doing it. Don't you love it when it does it in rehearsals? However, I can tell it should actually have worked because every one of them has gone red over on this side. So I'll just do a save and hope that it writes that to all of them. Right, it has, but it has not deleted the other one. And the other one is set to be the star. So with a bit of luck, if we grab the other one, we take those away, take that away, we leave that and we leave it with the star on it, and then resave it, and then go through them. You can see that's by far the fastest way to deal with that. What we're looking at now is it's a PNG, which makes the file actually smaller, although it's an incredibly big file because it's 1440 by 1440, which is now the minimum that they will take. And that is actually inside the file. So it travels with the file. Any other information that we wanted to change, it's just a matter of selecting them. What have we got in here? Can we put anything in here? Original artist. Still Oz. but we can do that by copying and pasting, and again, just saving it. So if you've ripped your own music, not the U2 that that Apple have foisted upon you, Kim, but if you've ripped your own music, you can actually get this to dial out to services online that will find meta for you, and that meta can include artwork, which I did. I triaged all my stuff in iTunes. You probably didn't bother, did you?
No.
And now I just use Spotify, so it's a total waste of time. But where this comes into its own is when you're doing stuff like we're doing, which is I need to do just what you've seen me do in terms of changing the artwork on all of the files. And this is just so much better that it's the right size for a start. It's the minimum size Apple will take. But in addition to that, I could, if I needed to, like this one doesn't have the lyrics in it, but that one does. I say that's to do with the fact that the MP3s don't have the lyrics. And that's to do with, that was created, but back in the day, MP3s did not support that. So let's see if we could do it now. Could we take what are the show notes from 8 and put them in there and save it now? Because the file formats, there you go, that's now working. The file formats change. And as they change, they then support more meta. So it would be quite manual, but not that arduous. So Command and A, Command and C, click on the other version of the file. That one's already got it in. What have we got here? Does 3? 3 doesn't. So Command and A, Command and C, click on the other one, paste it in, Command and S to save it. So I don't think I'd necessarily bother with all of that. The reason being, the way podcasts work, this information, all of that, yeah, we were still talking about Typinator back in episode 3. Wow. Oh, and the Barbie doc, that was bad, wasn't it? That information lives in the feed. And what happens when you pull an episode down to your podcatcher is it pulls that from the feed. So it doesn't need to be forcibly injected into the audio file. But if you're just putting these files online for people to download, then you can actually forcibly insert it now, but you couldn't back in the day. Discogs Wizard. Yeah, that's the one I used. And it's so good. It's so good. You can get all of the lyrics pushed in, the artwork pushed in. I've only had a couple of issues with artwork when it's not been the UK artwork, in which case you can do it manually, as you've just seen me do. You just need to go to the artwork and actually find the artwork. I usually go to Amazon and then crop it if necessary and then put it in. But obviously now, is anybody actually doing their own ripping anymore? Are you still using it, Neil? Or have you got some kind of online service? I think for podcasting like we're doing, it's a fantastic app. And if you are like an audiophile where you're ripping it to FLAC or something, then it's absolutely amazing. What's the price, Mike? Wasn't it $20?
Of
$24? Yate?
Yate. It's $24.
$24, I do believe. So it's a bargain. It's an absolute bargain.
Or is it less than that?
No, I think I thought it was 20 to 24,
So
somewhere around that mark. But it is a very, very useful application. So obviously for what we're doing, extra useful, but useful if you're looking after your own music or any other files that you just want to organise. Because any meta that you put in this, if you were to put this on a USB stick and play it on your car radio thing where you plug a USB in and it reads it, it will read this metadata in. So the metadata's not wasted as long as it's your files. It's not wasted if it's music files. But if you've got an online streaming service, then you wouldn't necessarily need this. So Kim says, can I download all of my iTunes library before I move to Catalina on my other machine? How is it at the moment? Is your music in Apple Music? Is it living on a hard drive somewhere? I do believe I've not even been into the music app. I really haven't. This is going to be very embarrassing. Welcome to music. No, I haven't got anything on here. I'm assuming if I have, so I don't want to start listing or take a quick tour or anything like that either. I'm assuming your music would still be playable from this library here. It's just not called iTunes anymore. It's Apple Music. And I'm not at all sure with this. I don't want to start a trial. And that's not clear whether that's going to start a trial or not, but I can see it's got my Ladies' Night playlist in, which was the only playlist I actually had up there. So your artists and your albums and songs will all come down here. Look, he's even updating it as I sit here. So you shouldn't really have a problem, but yes, I personally would back it up before you start. But you should be absolutely fine to play it. In which case, if it's your music and not music that you've uploaded to Apple Music and done that match malarkey, then Yate would be useful for you to get your own artwork, etc. Living in Apple Music. I'd back it up, but if it's an Apple Music, then it's just a different interface and a different name. So all they've done really is rip out the management of applications on iOS and the backup of iOS devices. Other than that, it's exactly the same. But if you would probably be getting metadata from Apple Music, but if you wanted to push your own in, it would be useful. So Neil doesn't buy CDs anymore, but you've done some for friends. I think I had 1 or 2 CDs that there was no equivalent on a music service to. So I decided I would rip those. And another source of material where I need to come in and add meta is when I've got like a 12-inch vinyl. And again, there's no equivalent to it. So I would record the music and then I would split it up into tracks. Sometimes it actually finds it. It depends how accurate I am with the length of the track, because that's how it finds it. It creates a unique code based on the number of tracks, duration of tracks, other various metadata of the tracks. And then it makes a pretty good guess most of the time. But I've only needed to do that for a handful. And, you know, they really are like old vinyl that I can't get anywhere else. But I just thought I would show you. It's far better than it used to be. And it's solving a problem in terms of we have 268 files that we need to deal with. And to just be able to insert that artwork is a huge time saver. So if you ever do need, if you've got some music, like all the stuff my mother wanted. Do you remember Dr. Quinn, medical woman?
Yeah.
We got the box set for her, and then she decided she wanted an Apple TV. Oh, it was a nightmare getting the stuff off. These were individual TV programmes. But instead of them being individual tracks on the DVD, no, it was one huge file of about 3.5 hours. And I had a video file that I had to chop up into individual episodes and then add the metaphor. So although in here I've only looked at audio files, it can also be used for video files. So if you do have some really awkward rippable stuff like I did, then it can be very, very useful for stuff like that. So it works with most media files, not just audio. And that is Yate. Right, Neil is using Tidal for music. A group of friends are on a family account. It's lossless. I have heard of Tidal. I must admit, I just use Spotify and be done with it. I'm not that bad in terms of how perfect it is. Although I did notice a huge difference when I ripped all my stuff years ago, and I ended up with 128k MP3s, which, well, they don't sound bad. As long as you're not comparing them to anything else. But once you are, then they're appalling. So I redid them all at 320. And now I've got M4As, I think. But they're fine. I download in high quality. And they're fine for me. But I fully appreciate if you're an audiophile, then absolutely you need better quality. Right, so moving on to organising text in Scrivener. Yes, it's project number 13. Right, this is the file we were working on last week, and I have transferred everything into it. Now almost everything. Now I need to bring some semblance of order to it. Now, if you remember what we were actually looking at, we had the iBook being this thing, which is going to prove tricky to get everything out of. Some chapters work brilliantly, and if you're trying to do anything like this, you'll hit the brick walls that I'm hitting. This one, which is chapter 1, if I command an A, it's the whole thing here, and that's fine. The only thing left for me to deal with is the artwork, any graphics that are in there, and that's fine. But as we worked through this, I'm like, why did you do that? And I think it was for the layout. So in here we had the Love Bites. And if I click in here and I Command an A, it selects that, but it does not select everything else. And that's because the text didn't flow from page to page. Each page was designed differently. So I'm going to come across that as a problem. But what I could easily get out is easily put in here. So last week we talked about the draft folder, which I said I tend not to use. For this project I might, I haven't decided yet. But this content at the top, the iBook, this is the iBook for episode 64. I don't want whatever comes out of the iBook with whatever format is attached to it putting in that draft folder, because everything is going to need to be gone through with a fine-tooth comb before it reaches the final product. So in here you can see the view that I've got. So we'll just have a quick recap of the navigation on Scrivener in case you've forgotten. We have different views. We have the Scrivenings view, which is all of the documents just threaded so you can see them. What you see in this middle window depends on what is selected over here. So we've got all of the chapters in here. If I choose the preface, then that's all I see. I can't scroll anywhere. If I choose something longer, I think, was it 2 that was longer, then I see the whole of just chapter 2. If within them they have multiple sections and I click on a section, I only see what's in the section. So the left-hand binder controls the view in the middle. Right, I'm just going to go back to the top of it just to show you that there is a corkboard view. Now the corkboard view used to have a corkboard background, which is still an option if you particularly want it to have a corkboard background. I changed it at one level or another and then left it alone. Hang on, that's not what I'm looking at right at this second. I want to see if we can change this in here. We can change quite a bit with it, but we can't change the background from in here, so that would have to be done from elsewhere. And I'm not particularly trying to look at that in the first place. I want this kind of view up here. So can we come out of that? Do not want to see that view at all. This is a timeline view and I don't want to see the timeline view. What are you doing? There we go. So I don't even want that view, I want that view. That's the standard corkboard view. For many years, Keith, who programs it, steered away from people who wanted to be able to reorganise it in a kind of organic way on there. But eventually he capitulated and put in a free-form corkboard. And as you can see, it's a little bit messy, isn't it? But this enables you to kind of move it. So if you're like, yeah, I need 4 out of the way while I think, then you can actually do that. And any changes that you make in here, so I'm organising them pretty much the way I wanted them, but anything that you do in here, that's why it comes with the commit option, because you are actually rearranging things in here. So I will commit to that, and then it says commit the freeform corkboard order, whether you're starting at the top and then left to right, which I am. So I'll say yes, and that should have no impact. But if I move this out of the way down here and did a commit and said that, then over here we've got 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7 and 4. And that's because when we were at the very top level in this view, I moved 4 to the other side of 7. But I can very quickly move it back and recommit that. So it's just 2 different views of the corkboard basically. And this view of the corkboard would have a corkboard background if in the preferences, where have you put the preferences? I hadn't changed it. So somewhere in here, and there is a lot of options here. Appearance, I do believe. Not the binder, the corkboard. And I think it's in there. So I have mine corkboard background set to this kind of very, very pale colour. But you can also have a corkboard texture, or you can add your own background if you want. So that's why mine is kind of that very pale pink colour. Right, the other view that you have, bearing in mind what I've got selected over on the left-hand side, is this outline view. So if we fold these up, make these a bit bigger, this is the outline view, which is showing you exactly the same content as the binder, just in a different way. Now, when I say a different way, I can be clicked in here. In fact, let's close up the binder. There's no correlation between what's in the binder and what is in this window other than what's selected. So you don't have to have it open here to be able to see the contents. In fact, you could have that closed up. And in this window here, if you happen to know that Command and 9 will open up the whole thing, so you can see both the chapters and then underneath that the sections, Command and 0 to close it up. You can also in here just choose to open one. It's just different views of the same thing. But the more you understand this, because mine got freaked out, didn't you, about losing things? That things would move.
Yeah.
This was years ago. It's like, well, I put it there and now I'm in this view and it's not there. It's not that anything's actually moved, it's just different ways of looking at it. One thing that they don't advertise, let's say this view here where you've got a lot of information if you Command and 9. It's great that you've got that much information in there, but sometimes you want to focus in over here on just like one thing. So you use the scrivening view. But then you'd like to go and get another look at somewhere else in the main view, but not have to go back to the outline to do it. So what you'd like up here is to be able to open that and see everything without having to click and click and click. Right, so let's fold the whole lot up. The way you do that is to hold the Option key down. And when you open it, everything underneath is opened. That's how I work with the MacBite shows. I've got 100 and odd shows down the side, but I only want to concentrate on one. And if I wanted to concentrate on that to the exclusion of any other folders that I happen to have in here, at the top level, I would do that, which would take me up. So I'm looking at iBook 64 and only the contents of it. I'm scrolling and I can't scroll down anymore. I'm just concentrating on that, which is a nice view as well. So I've got my information in here, and that's the different ways that I can fold it up. And another thing to remember, when you've opened it up like that and you close it up, when you open it up again, it is still opened. If you want to fold them up to just the section level, hold the Option key down again, click it, and it folds it up. Right, so we've got our information in there, but at the moment it's just a bit of a mess because it's not really organised in any other way than the original iBook was. So if I'm looking for things from Rip Van Winkle, or Jonathan as we know him, I know he's in here somewhere. He's definitely put a comment in many years ago when he was at school. Right, first thing I can do is I can actually click into this box that doesn't look like it's a search box, but it is when you click into it. And I can actually put Jonathan, and it's found some text, and I can enter, and there it is. Oh, the best Christmas present he could want. It's his favourite podcast of all time. So that bit there is going to be in a certain chunk of this text. But which chunk? And how would I find it again? Because I wouldn't want, as I start to add information, which I do have, I have extra information. So I'm going at this stage to put another folder in. Right, and I'm going to put new content. And I do have a mail from Jonathan. He has sent us in some extra text. So thing is, that says Jonathan, not Jonathan Isaacs. I could fill it in, make sure they match. But it's going to get out of hand if I can't just quickly get to information from Jonathan. So I don't just want to search for it, where I go up here and actually start searching. It would find it. So there's the mail from Jonathan, and there's the actual text. So this is telling you it's in a title of an item. And this is telling you it's text within an item, which is all very well, but it would be difficult to filter down for both. Right, this is when you start needing to organise things, and you do have a lot of different ways to organise things. When I started using Scrivener, I was teaching myself the features. And as I'm teaching myself the features, I'm thinking I'm not quite sure what I'd use keywords for. And there were keywords, there was a status, there was a label, there was custom metadata, you name it, it was all there. If we go into this outline view and right click on here, you can see all of the metadata you already have. And that's without you creating any extra meta data content. Let's get rid of all of these. It's midnight and it's woken itself up. So I remember looking at it and thinking, right, you've got a label, and with a label you have a colour. A status doesn't have a colour, but everything you see here can be customised, including the titles. So if for status I wanted that to say something else, you can even customise the title of the column. You'd need to remember that, originally it was the label list and the status list, but it's completely up to you what you do with these things. How do you make your mind up which to use? Because I could have a label of Jonathan, couldn't I? Or I could have a status for Jonathan. Or I could have a keyword for Jonathan. So when I'm learning this for the first time, I'm like, I don't know which to use for what. I also felt, you've got all these features, should probably use them some way. And the one I've never found a use for is keywords. I've tried, but I don't really need them because everything that I organise can be organised with something else. But I think in here it would possibly be the first time ever to use some keywords. And keywords exist in Scrivener per file, in the same way that labels and status appear per file. So I could have, in fact, I can actually open one and show you, can't I? Let's open up which one's got most in? Possibly MacBites? Not sure. That was probably a big mistake, wasn't it? 'Cause this is the biggest file that I've got, so it's going to struggle to open, but there you go. Right, it's done. In here, so this one happens to be Radio Gaga. You can see there are no... That's the keywords for that one, but we won't worry about that. You can see I've got a status down here. When I go to the status, I've got not started, in progress. Now, don't panic, because this is an old show. It is actually finished. But I have in progress, I have complete. And then I have PR. Now, that's a pre-record. So if we pre-record a bit, then I have different statuses, but the colours match. Because, it's in the system, it's done, or it's not started, it needs to be pre-recorded. The only type of thing we would pre-record is when we get some feedback that's quite long. Or someone's died. That sounds ridiculous. I could not do the piece that I did about my mum, my dad and Maya with Mike sat there listening, and I think he would be as bad. So those are the only kind of things that we pre-record. But those labels that we have there, and this over here, you might think there's an overlap, and there is, but we use them in different ways. But what's in the label and what's in the status does not match the other file. So it's per file. What you're looking at in here is per file. These aren't even the same colours, and they're just named with a colour rather than meaning anything. So the first thing to think about in here is, before you even go in and think, I'll just change that label, I'll change that name, you've got keywords, you've got a label, you've got a status. You could put some text in the synopsis, and you could put text in the notes. So what is it you're trying to track? And then work out where it would be best. Now, with a label, you could use a label for people, but that bit that had Jonathan in it also had other people in it, and you can only allocate one label to a scrivening. So if, where was Jonathan's bit? It's down here, wasn't it? The MacBites. I think it was the show notes, so it'd be this one. Right, if red was Jonathan, then I can only allocate one person. If I then wanted to allocate another person, it's instead of. So for that reason, labels not best for people. Unless it's something like who's doing a bit of the show. But to say that somebody was mentioned in that text, a label's not really the way. Neither is the status. Because even if we went in and we changed the status, which you can do, we've got edit to edit the status, and you've got edit to edit the labels, including the title that you see in here. So if I go in to actually do that, if I change that to label and let's say new label, When we go back to here, it's actually in the interface. You are editing the Scrivener interface, which is fantastic. To be able to customize it in that way is great. But for what we're trying to do here, this won't work. We wouldn't be able to allocate multiple people in the label or the status. We've got other things over here. You could have dates and word counts and stuff. You also, over here, you're not just seeing the synopsis and the notes, you have bookmarks, you have metadata, so custom metadata and keywords. And what's showing at the moment is keywords, but you can also create custom metadata. So what we could do is create another metadata element that is MacBites and then put it in there. But you'd have to say to yourself, what's the limit when you're setting up custom metadata? Would it actually work? So this is your custom metadata. You want to add new metadata. You need to give it a title. Okay, let's say we're going to track MacBites. You then choose the type of custom metadata. Well, text would give you just a text box that you could type endlessly in. Checkbox is for when it's a yes or a no, and that isn't really relevant. It's not a date either. But a list might be handy if you could choose from a list. And at the moment, the list doesn't have a title, but again, we could put MacBites. And you should be screaming at me to stop that this won't work. Why won't this work? There's Jonathan. Let's put Kim in. Why won't this work? This is going to have exactly the same problem that the other one would. It will work from a position of, let's put Deb in as well, and let's OK it. And now we have MacBites custom metadata. We have a list of MacBites, and we can say there's Jonathan. But when we go back and say and Kim was there as well, it's either or. So we still have a problem. Custom metadata won't work. What will work? And what will work is keywords. Because the way keywords work, you can allocate multiple keywords. So if in here we put Jonathan, he's going to start arguing about the colour of this next, because that's pink. And we add another one, we add Kim, and then we can add Deb. Loving these short names. Right. We start building up a list of keywords. Now you can leave them like that, and you also over here have the ability to see keywords. Keywords were an option. There's the keywords. If we go in there now, we have keywords down here. We should be able to allocate them. So we're actually adding a keyword there, which is not what we want. But we can go in here and we can add keywords like that. So really straightforward. And you can see up here, the colour that they are is showing in there. I don't know if we can get the whole text in if we make it wide enough. No, we can't. Okay, so that actually is probably the only way to achieve what we're trying to achieve here, which is that this one, which is the episodes... Who else did we have in there? We must have had Jane and we must have had Minster. So let's add some more people in. Right, at least 3 people had something to say about that particular show. So in this one, are we in the right one? We are, the MacBites episode. We're in section 1. Jonathan had something to say, and so did Jane, and so did Minster. And that is how you can do it. That's the best way to track who said what in which bit. Keywords. And I've never actually used keywords for real in any of my projects because I've never had the need to track multiple things about it. I've always got away with either, yep, a label will do, that will give it a colour. I only need it to be one thing or another, not multiple things. Same with status. Now, keywords are more powerful than that even, because it's all very well if you wanted to track MacBites. But what if you wanted to track something else? And the something else that I thought of was, back in the day, MacBite Siri, whose birthday it was this week, he's 9, bless him, wasn't in every show. Obviously, he soon rectified that. But if I'm tracking down here, if I've got another chapter and I'm tracking something, which I will have, as we go through this, I will have. But let's say in here, I need to track where MacBite Siri was. MacBite Siri not being a MacBiter, then it gets a bit messy in that, you know, all of these our MacBiters, but this is a crew member. We might want to track something that I've said or done, or something that Mike has said or done. And then your keywords start getting a bit on the messy side. But what you could do is add the MacBites crew, and then take the three of us and put that inside there. And then that folds up. So if there's something that we're all involved in, then it's MacBites crew. You could do exactly the same with the MacBiters. So let's put MacBiters and do exactly the same in there. Bring them into that. So you're not limited with keywords to just having them mean one thing. They could mean different things. That is the way that Things works. Who uses Things? Who's ever seen Things?
Me.
Are you still using it?
Yeah.
It's a miracle. Was it the price that did it, Mike?
Don't be cheeky.
How many to-do apps have you tried?
Loads.
How many have lasted more than a week?
Loads.
How many have actually worked?
None.
None. No, Things is very, very good. Well, what it does is you can have nested keywords, and that's exactly what you can have in here. You could then, if you wanted the MacBiters to all be red, you can double click on the little colour chip, which opens up this. And from there, we can use that to pick up the colour from the MacBites one there. Which one is that? I have no idea. I don't think that's one of the pencils, is it? I don't think it's one of the options. But I can do the same with Kim as well. So the MacBiters could all be the same colour chip. And then you know it's a MacBiter. That's the idea anyway. So you can organise them by colour. You can organise them by group. You can take away things if you need. So if we sacked MacBite Siri, it wouldn't end well. But you can actually take that away. Now, can you... Let me just add MacBite Siri back. MacBite Siri. I'm just checking if... Yes, you can. So you can keep nesting as well. So you can go down multiple levels. So in terms of what I'm trying to do with the information that I've got in here, MacBite Siri really needs promoting. What I'd be looking to do is actually allocate keywords to sections of this and chapters if need be, so I know who said what and when they said it. So once I'm okay, I want to pull together everything from Jonathan, I can actually just view it for things that Jonathan has been added as a keyword to. Really quite thrilling that I finally found a use for keywords. It really made my working with Scrivener easy. Once I decided if I didn't have a use for keywords, just ignore them. That might sound obvious, but when you're learning something and it's there and it's so amazingly powerful, you're like, I want to use it for something, and then you literally have nothing to use it for. So that's what I'll do in relation to all of this will need flagging up, but I'll probably need more than this. I'll probably also create keywords for things that can be used as is and things that will need updating, in which case it would look like this. So I would add in a top level. Now status wouldn't be a good one to choose, would it? But actually it is status. It's not a status that I can just say it's X or it's Y. It may have multiple things, so it would be a keyword rather than anything else. And inside there, I would want like needs. In fact, it would probably be something like need radical update. Right, so I could allocate that. I know that bit already. As I'm looking at this, all of these 3 bits here, all of that, including that, would need a radical update. So I'd be looking to add that to it. Let's add that. Apple TV Siri just fired up. Sorry. This is MacBite Siri. You know what he's like. Right, so I would be adding that to these. So these were all selected and I dragged and dropped need radical update. Another bit that needs radical update would be the calendar bit. Where was the calendar? MacBite's calendar. Talk about out of date. It's shocking. So I would allocate that. Some of this can be used as is. So back in the status here, I click the button underneath there, the middle one of the 3, that will add me a new status within the status group. And that one would be usable as is. Whoa, amazing. Right, and that would be all of these, the outtakes, because they were outtakes as and when they were used. I don't need to make any changes to them. They're usable as is. Because of that, I would probably be looking to change that to a very nice green, meaning I don't need to do anything with it. And I would then proceed to go through that, marking them up as that. These muted colours that they use are very different to the old ones, but the old ones were easier to work with. So I wouldn't particularly, I would probably keep the MacBiters. It would make sense to have the MacBiters different colours so you could work out who was who. But depending on what else I decide to do with the keywords, you need to think about that too. Now, this is the keywords float over. That used to be a very dark colour. I'm guessing it's changed. This is how long it is since I've used it. I'm guessing it's changed because it now has dark mode, which I can't imagine using dark mode. Scrivener has also had like full screen mode since forever as well, and it has 2 different full screen modes. So in the view, you now have composition mode, which is Scrivener's full screen mode, and Apple's full screen mode. So that will just take it to full screen mode. Luckily, this will float over it in full screen mode, which would be a pain if it didn't. And the other view, so come out of full screen mode, it's very different. It used to be called full screen mode until Apple brought full screen mode in. But composition mode is totally different. This is where it's like you are typing and you are not doing anything else. Do you ever use that view, Mike?
No.
No. I think it's probably because I've got 2 external monitors, so there's no way I'm not distracted by what's on those. But that's composition view.
I just use typing in text view.
I can see the benefit of it if I turn off the external monitors and I was in the zone. But that isn't the kind of writing that I do. It's not long form writing. Even if it's a blog post, you know, I guess the longest that would be is maybe 2,000-3,000 words. If it was a novel or a book of some description, like when we used to write our own manuals, Mike.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. The word crashed every 5 minutes. Then I can see the benefit of it. But for what we're doing at the moment, obviously that focus mode, it's focusing on writing the content, which is not going to do me any good at all. So you can get out of that over here. Point was with that, let's go back into it, composition mode. On my other monitor, I still have the keywords. And if you want to use the keywords, you can place certain dialog boxes from within Scrivener around the area that you're working on. So when I actually come down to write the content for this thing, should we ever get that far, there's so much meta and management around it before you even think of typing anything. You can actually sit and have that there in that view if you would like to use it. I'll let you know if I actually do manage to use that view for anything. I augment that view with Red Sweater's, what on earth's that called? Is it there as bar? No, don't think I installed it. They had a little app. Can you find the app for me from Red Sweater? It's the Touch Bar app. Oh, Touche it was called. There we go, Touche. Which appears at the bottom, which if I go into Scrivener, oh, it's not working on Catalina. I might need to update that. I could well need to update that. But I supplemented it with that, which gave me some basic features at the bottom as well. Is it still supported, Mike, or is it RIP? Because that was particularly useful. Right.
What was it called?
A Touche. Touche.
Red Sweater. No, it's not listed.
They don't list it. You have to look for Touche. It's a freebie. Right, because you can use a lot of keywords, and I might get to the point that I do, you can also in here do some searches. So in here I've said, what's it filtered for?
Yeah, it looks like it. I'll post in the chat.
Is it filtered for status? I think it's that one. Usable as is. And you get over here the search results, which is what I was saying about having Jonathan in multiple places and being pulled through into the search results over on the left-hand side, which means that you can just flick between these and get the actual information. So very useful. And underneath here, you can choose to apply them to the selected documents or indeed remove them from the selected documents. So pretty much you can do anything from this window. But you also have over in this view, which I particularly prefer that view. I know the shortcut keys to get to the synopsis, and I know the shortcut keys to get to the notes, and back to the middle, and back to the binder. So I fly around there with shortcut keys. These I use less, but there is in here the custom meta and the keywords. And from in here, you can do the same. You can add keywords by choosing them. So which one was this? John Knight. That was usable as is. It doesn't make sense to do that, but I'll put that was me. So now we've got multiple keywords next to it through here. And you can also choose to add an extra keyword. So if I just add an extra keyword, I don't even need that keyword panel up to add the extra keyword. But it will add it at root level. If that was a status, then I would have to come in here and then move it and say, okay, that belongs in the status. But you can do that. So this is particularly useful down there. There is a shortcut key to get to that. Now, which is which? Oh, gosh, this got complicated. It's it's command, control, option, command. So it's the bottom three plus H, N to get to the second one, J to get to the third one, and then it goes off piste. It used to work. There used to be 5 of them. But I can't get to the other one. Something else has happened. But I shall sort that out shortly. Right. So it's really a matter of managing it. And whereas I thought, oh, I use keywords. No, I use status and... Oh, what's the other one? Come on, I use these all. Label. Status and label. It wasn't appropriate for this project. And it's the first time ever it has needed keywords, but now it's got keywords. By the time we look at this next week, everything will be done, all the keywords will be created, everything will be keyworded. And how I'll get around to doing that and doing comparisons is I'll change the interface. So I'll be using this interface and I'll be using the keywords, and I'll have that probably as a float over, which I'll take quite narrow and maybe put over here out of the way. But I will use the dual view, and there are 2 dual views here. So the first one is, because when I use it vertical split. I get these 2 vertical splits, which means if I go in my book content over here, so we're going there for chapter 1 and there for chapter 2, I can do a comparison between either 2 different files, but I could just as easily use 2 files which are identical, but by scrolling I can see different places within them to do a comparison. But if you try doing that from up here, you won't see that, which is the split there, which is a vertical split. You will see a horizontal split like that. And I can toggle that on and off. Guess what key that is? It's the D key. It's the good old option key. Oh, the option key. Basically, if you're in an app, any app on the Mac, and you're thinking, I wish that did the other thing, an alternative, hold the option key down and see if it does. Because it happens so frequently. So with the option key held down, I get a totally different split. I get the horizontal split. I'm looking at the same files and just different parts of them, but this time it's horizontal. Most of the time on an iMac, it does not make sense for it to be horizontal. So that's why I changed mine. I don't know why horizontal is the default, because vertical would make sense to me. But when you close this up, it defaults up here to the previous view. So it remembers it. So I then have to switch it back to that and then switch it, and then it leaves me with a vertical split should I wish to do it. So I will have a vertical split on that. What I tend to do in this window is what I do with MacBites. So where's MacBites? Right, this is shocking at the moment because it's so tiny, but I have this view. I'm going to make this work. This is 134, so we don't want to be looking at 134. It's locked onto it. I can tell it's locked on because if you look at the top, it's red. So this bit up here is locked on to that show. So to get rid of that is Command, Option and L, which unlocks it. And if I then, in my MacBites stuff here, choose an old one. So how about the Scrabble one? There's the Scrabble one. I then lock that on there. And that way I can navigate in here. And what I choose in here, because I have that selected at the bottom, which is most unfortunate, it's pointing the wrong way. But what it means is if you select something in here, it will show it on the left. I know it's pointing the wrong way. So if you look at that Siri sketch, if I want to actually see the Siri sketch, I click on it and then it loads it into there. So I can see it. If that wasn't selected, then it wouldn't do that. So in terms of navigation, I will leave it like that, but this bit over here, I would take up to the book and that would take it into outline view, and I would use Option, Command and L and lock it on there. And then as I click on here, you can see nothing's happening at the moment. It's not changing what's in this window on the left because the button at the bottom isn't pushed in. Once the button at the bottom is pushed in, as I move through it, it will navigate me that way. If I am happy with that view, if that's the view I'm going to work with, then one thing that I can do with that is save it as a saved view up here. So you have the view manager that you can get to, which is this, it's the layout manager. And if this is what I'm going to be doing for the iBook project, MacBite, what would we call it? Project number 13, I can add into this a new layout. It uses the layout that I've got there, and I can actually call that project number 13. And then when I want to use that view, all I need to do is choose it from the drop down. So if what I did at this point was hide the binder and hide that and go into like one view over there, so it's totally different. Technically speaking, go into here, project number 13, and we're back to where we started. And all I need to do is, in this one, lock it onto that. And then we're good to go. So I have my environment ready to load everything in at last. And I've got a way that I can track what kind of content, you know, which MacBite has mentioned what I need, who sent what in. All we need now is for you guys to send in your love bites. And like Jonathan, who's been a very good boy, and sent us in a mail that
very quiet boy.
We can use.
Very quiet boy.
He's a very quiet, but we can't disturb him. No. We'll disturb him tomorrow with the 1812, which somebody has actually requested.
They have.
She's genius. But yeah, I'm ready to go now. I have all of that set up. But this is why it would be, if you started off and you use labels, then you'd have to go in and change it all. So it's a bit like one of those projects where you think like, we're never going to get going with this. But once you've set the environment up, you are ready to go. So you'll even notice I have something new. Oh, I have new content to go with the stuff that it's hard to believe that's only 4 years worth. Because I've got another 9 to shove in there now, so I could be some time. But we are ready to go with it. So I hope that was useful. When we get back to it next week, everything will be in it. And you can see where everybody's mentioned. I want you all to get a mention. So send me something in about MacBites. I've done a lot of work on Project 13. I have. As you know, I look back at that iBook and I do not know how I pull that together in 10 days. I do not know. All I will say is my working practices then and my working practices now are different. What I'd be doing now is, as I'm working, even putting together like the slides for tonight, I'd be doing it and making sure that all of those assets are in DevonThink in a particular folder, and there would be notes going on and stuff. And back then it was a case of, you've got 10 days, get on with it. How old would Maya have been then? 11. Oh, and he was just about, literally a week after I made this book, he had the worst night ever, and we had to ring the vet in the middle of the night, who didn't appreciate us ringing him in the middle of the night, which I didn't think was on, seeing as though we'd never done it before, and he was in such a state. He was crying. We ended up going to the vets, and that was when we had to cancel the one and only time we've cancelled a session and we were still sat outside the vet. And if I could have done it sat in a car, I would have done. Trust me, I have trained sat in a car before. I did a live session from the hospital's car park on 3G with a 3G Wi-Fi. And people were looking at me like I'd freaked. It was pre-COVID. Now everybody's like, oh, she's just on a Zoom, it's fine. But back then it was like she's talking to herself and wearing a headset. La la. No, I was training. And when I'd finished training, I then went in and picked my mum up. Oh, yes, happy, happy days. Not. So I have no real idea how it got put together. Let's just say it was a miracle. Because a week later, we were nursing our poor boy. So it was a good job it wasn't a week before. There would have been no iBook. Are you kinder to your future self? I am now. Because there's nothing worse than coming back to a project like the iBook and thinking, where's the raw materials? And they'll be there. They just won't be catalogued in a useful way. They'll probably be shoved into a folder. We've all done it, haven't we? Revision 1, extra stuff, finished on the 12th. And I'll look at it and I'll be like, what were you thinking? But the answer was, I wasn't thinking. I wasn't thinking of future me. Now, I think of future me having a nervous breakdown, looking at it thinking, where is everything? But it's really good to come to Scrivener and think, I've now got this need and now I need to look at the features. But I think you need to understand the features even when you don't need them. And when people learn a new feature, they twist it in such a way, I'm going to use that feature no matter what. No, just understand it and use it when it's relevant. And I have been using Scrivener since 2006 and I have never consistently used keywords. I've tried them and then thought, it's not adding anything. It's just making more work for me and I never search that way. So it's not adding anything. So I just didn't use it. Another thing that I've seen people do, and this really makes me laugh, collections. Collections in Scrivener. I've never seen a good explanation. I understand what they are. You will have seen them because a set of search results is a collection. But in terms of actually deliberately creating a collection, I've never seen a good explanation. And it's always funny when I watch some kind of Scrivener videos, and I'm going to talk about collections, and I'm like, excuse me, hold my beer. I'm going to have to sit and watch this. And each one is funnier than the last one. But if you really did have a need to make a subset of what you've put in a book, then a collection is your friend. But you don't have to do it with every single Scrivener project that you use. And I think I've only ever created 2. And I was really glad that the feature was there, but don't overdo it and think I've got all these features. This one is using more features than many, many projects, which is good because I can show you guys it's a real thing. It's not just a demo of we'll create a collection because we can. We would be doing it for a really good reason rather than just showing it. Right. Oh, Santosh is still here. Excellent. Truly amazing work. Love the presentation. Glad you liked it. Glad you liked it. Right, let's go into here because we're back next week. Oh, we are so close, aren't we, Mike? 99. Yes, it's 99 next week. Be prepared for a party the week after where we will be celebrating Halloween 2 nights running as well, won't we? Mm. But the dog won't be wearing her outfit. No. Not after last year. No. She was really
You could
sulky.
wear it for her.
Yeah, the thing is, it's dog-sized, Mike. I could wear the horns, couldn't I? Mm. I think we've got light-up horns. And didn't we have a very small, I think it worked off a battery, pumpkin? Yeah. Because obviously we're not going to be able to get a pumpkin delivered either. So, but it will happen.
Yeah, it's downstairs in a toy box thing.
There you go. So I know we've got everything from last year, but she's not allowed to wear it because she was really sulky. So I've got to wear it and she can laugh at me this year. Excellent. But next week, what are you doing? Oh, you're not telling them, are you? It's a secret. It's a surprise. It's a surprise. But I'm carrying on with project number 13. And there's going to be part 2 of the holiday planner because we'll need it ready by next week, won't we? Ready for the holidays. So we need to transfer it to the iPad. That's going to be jolly
laughable
fun.
Holidays.
Laughable holidays. Yes, it's going to be funny because you remember when it's a nightmare showing my iPad? I'm going to beat it into submission this week. In the meanwhile, you can watch and listen to MacBites on demand. I am almost at the point I have caught up with processing the Maroons. So you will find the Maroons playing every day on MacBites FM. There's also a feed that you can subscribe to. A lovely, lovely feed that you can subscribe to. I'll leave that on the screen. Give you a chance to copy it down. Why is that not a clickable link on the site, Mike?
I don't know.
Is it going to be by tomorrow night? Excellent. Yes. Excellent. Thank you for that.
I'll add it to things.
See, I've done it. It's only taken me almost 29 years, but I've got him to use a to-do manager. Make a note of the date. Right, in the meanwhile, we love you guys. If you love us, can you give us a thumbs up? It really helps with YouTube. They like things like that. In the interim, I'm actually sending out mails. It's a miracle. I'm doing that via Scrivener, by the way, which I have shown you. So this is how come there are mails being sent out. But what I do is I put together direct links to each individual bit of the show and send that out. So if you want to find an individual bit of the show, you can do it in two ways. You can either use the link in the email or you can use the timings underneath the video. Now, timings underneath the video. I would love for them to be there as soon as we finish. So would Mike. YouTube? Less so. So we leave it until Saturday morning, our time, which would also be great. But last week, Mike did all of the timings, didn't you? And then looked at the video Saturday night, and said, why has it gone down by 5 minutes? So YouTube are playing with our minds with the timings at the moment. So if you use the ones underneath the video and they seem a little bit off, it's not us, it's YouTube. Hopefully the ones in the email will be spot on. Right, we also have, I've moved that, but it hasn't moved, there we go. We also have the MacBites mail, where you will hear of all things MacBites, like Apple events. And it looks like there might be another one before Christmas. I'm getting quite used to this. Do you think we can have one a month? Yeah, why not? That would work. So that's all things MacBites. And we are also in Slack, where we have a ball all week. It is macbites.co.uk/Slack, and you are all welcome to join us. It's where we carry on the conversation. Right, that's how you can contact us, and we do want to hear from you. We've got to put together this project number 13, and we need your feedback. Where did you hear about us first? What do you enjoy? What's been your favourite bit? We won't ask for favourites, because MacBite Siri would win, obviously. But that's our contact. So I'm coming out of that now, and I'm going to do it in a different way. Would be coming out of it. There we go. I shall do it over here while we ponder what the referee has got to say. Are we declaring Jonathan asleep?
Yeah.
Oh, Paul's closing on the new house on the 28th. That is so exciting. And only 11 days away. Oh, that is amazing. Right, do we have the umpire? Umpire. I'm not putting it up until we have it official. Not after the last one. But I will key it up there. At the moment, it's 18-9. Point to me. So at the moment, that's the score. But if I come into here, why do you move it on me? Such an unfriendly interface. Then we'll take it to 19. Oh, Jonathan. Do you know this week he had 3 days off work and was saying he was going to have an afternoon nap, the whole works. This week was a dead cert. And where is he? Asleep. He will catch up in the morning. I know he will. Good morning, Jonathan. Do you know what did it? I know what did it. Do you know what did it? It was those cabbage parcel beef things that looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
They looked gorgeous. Well, obviously, he's overindulged in them, hasn't he? And now he's sleeping it off. But it's all right. He'll be up way before I am tomorrow morning. We have actually been known to pass. So I'm heading to bed. Jonathan's getting up. Do you think he's getting old, Kim? Do you think it's catching up with him? Do you know, you've got to cut the pair of us some slack, and Mike, and Lola, given what's happening with are we in lockdown, are we not in lockdown, and the fact that they've moved a COVID testing centre next door to him. Poor guy. He's in his oasis. Are we in lockdown yet? And when I say lockdown, I mean another one. No, Boris has said he may need to intervene. Grow a pair, Boris. People are dying. You wouldn't think so, would you? Anyway, everywhere else is closed, so we're not going anywhere. We hope it's better where you are. But it might not be where it is. Crying out loud. No, we're still at that point. Will we go into lockdown? Probably by Monday. When I say lockdown, we're talking a Tier 3 UK lockdown, which is like what we're in now, only bigger and better. How many levels of lockdown have we got in this country now?
3.
No, we have a Tier 1, a Tier 2 and a Tier 3.
Yeah.
We have the rule of 6, which is where you're not in Tier 1. And we have a total lockdown like Wales, where you're not moving. So we have at least 5. Who is actually in charge in our area? I wish I knew Kim. Well, if it was Boris right at the moment, then we'd be in lockdown. So I'd have to say it's the council, led by Andy Burnham, who is refusing the government. Well, he's refusing to acquiesce to what the government want. But in terms of who is in charge, who would be able to say a categoric yes or no, that would be Boris. The central government reserve the right to do it. They just don't want to do it because it looks like bullying. Tier 1, 3 and lots of tiers. Oh, yes. I've run out of tiers now. If we're in 3, that's not actually a total lockdown, but it's not good. But Wales has shut the border, which borders one of our counties. Lancashire has gone into a Tier 3, so that's another border that we have. So Derbyshire is in a Tier 3. So to be honest, there's only like a corridor of about 50 yards to escape. So it's just a matter of time. But yes, technically Boris is in charge, but he doesn't want to be seen to go against the elected mayor, which is how it would be in the States, isn't it? Wouldn't that be the same as the president wanting something in a state, but the state governor not wanting it? I think it's the same as that. So Andy Burnham's like the state governor. He's the mayor. It sounds like the Wild West, doesn't it? But he's not said anything today, so who knows? Who knows? I'll take that off the screen now because Jonathan will have had enough by now. Right, let's clear that and do that. And then we can go and get something to eat. Like an ice cream. Is Wendy coming tomorrow?
I've no idea.
I'm sure she is. Is the Tesco lady? Well, Tesco's somewhere coming.
Tesco, yes.
Kim says they've been in Tier 2, whole time dreaming of Tier 3. And the governor's in charge of the state. So could the governor, if the president wanted something in that state, the governor could categorically say no and then it wouldn't happen?
Oh, you've cost Graham money. He's bought Dropshelf.
Dropshelf. You'll love it, Graham. You'll love it. You'll love it. I must put down that I'm doing the iOS versions next week as well. Only there isn't one for Dropshelf, so no, nothing lost there. Right, shelf apps. There we go. Well, do you know, Graham, it's been a while, you've got to admit. Good night to you. On iOS. Right, so there's going to be lots of iOS next week. iPad permitting, obviously. So, yeah. The way it... If we were the states and it was the state governor and the president, then the president would have priority. So Boris can say yes or no. So I don't know in your case where you're saying the governor's in charge of the state. Is that to the exclusion of the president? Because over here it's not. I don't know why we've got a mayor. All it does is cost money. The president would need to make a declaration of some sort to take control. The people would go nuts if he did that. I honestly don't know what would happen here, Kim. I don't know whether people... I think it's 50-50. People who are backing Andy Burnham... And his argument isn't that he doesn't want to go into a lockdown. His argument is he wants people paid a minimum of 80% if they're on furlough. And they're offering 67%. So it's a money thing at the moment. But there's also the other half of people where Mike and I are not on furlough, so it doesn't impact us at all. And I think we should be in a lockdown because I think lives are at stake. But I can appreciate that's going to have a heck of an impact everywhere else. So there's no good answer to this. There isn't. Our Premier just disclosed an affair with a disgraced MP who's on corruption charges. What? Really? Why is that not on the BBC site? Hang on. Let me find World News and see if I can find it. Where are we? Let's go to home. Why don't we have World News anymore? Where's the World News gone?
We're being replaced with COVID.
That's true, because that's where it used to be.
Yeah.
Hang on, there's more over this side.
It's the fifth one along.
Is it? Oh, so it is. There it is.
Yeah.
They've moved it. They've moved my cheese. The thing is, all we're hearing about is this teacher in Paris, which is also shocking. And isn't there an election in New Zealand as well?
Yeah.
No, I am not seeing that on here. I will clearly need... It's in New South Wales, right. I will find that and go and find it. No, it's not on our World News, but I think this is because of the stuff in France. Other than that, it might be. Other than that, it might be. Oh, now Israel are easing their lockdown because cases have declined. Wish our cases had declined. It was terrible, wasn't it? When Mike said to me what had happened, I said, pardon? I literally couldn't quite get... I was going to say my head round it, but that would be in poor taste. I couldn't understand. Did not appreciate straight away. I'm like, what? There's something not quite right in France, isn't there? Mm. I always thought of France as really laid back, but there's been such horrible things happen there. It's heartbreaking. What a world we live in, hey? And on that thought, Gladys, no, I had no... Oh, Gladys, like the software. No, I have not heard anything about that. This is typical, though. The BBC just bombard us with stuff that we're not particularly bothered about or want to hear about because, like Boris is still on the front page and we've heard about that endlessly. Endlessly. And when I put the name in, I get Koala War splits Australia's New South Wales government. This is from September. I have nothing beyond that. Everything is earlier than that. So I'm clearly going to have to go to a totally different site if I'm going to find anything out at all. But I've got the name, so I will head off and I will have a look at that. So, for the moment, guys, I'm going to say good night from me.
And good night from me.
And we'll both see you next time. In the meanwhile, stay safe, guys.